You made it, folks. I am as offended as you are. We have been doing this now 4 days in a row. This will be the fifth, but the good news is we get a little break here coming up for Saturday and Sunday. So much going on. In the meantime, you should know about today's weather because, of course, we are different than the others out there. There are balls of fire in the sky every day for the foreseeable future. There's just clouds here and there, like today, sunny and breezy, 80 degrees. But over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, that fancy term fall begins tomorrow. I just can't believe it. I swear it feels like the kids just got out of school and now not only are they back, but it's autumn, it's fall. I mean, craziness. Sunday, they say it's going to be sunny and pleasant. So all the other ones are a comment on different aspects of the weather, like breezy, sunny, warm, afternoon. I just rarely ever see them throwing and pleasant. That seems so subjective, right? Like breezy is or it isn't, but pleasant feels like someone's just like, oh, it should be a nice day. I guess it depends on what you think of the weather. Nonetheless, going to have a super nice weekend ahead of you. I am getting deprived of a little bit of the baseball this weekend, which breaks my heart because I got the boys headed back to Southern California to spend a little bit of time with Grandpa to the extent that they can and some family out there. Well, I got a bunch of stuff to do here. But last night I had a cool opportunity to be part of a really great event. It was the inaugural First Responders Douglas County Heroes Gala. It was put on by the foundation down there, the Douglas County Community Foundation, DCCF, which is headed up by Brock Smethels, superstar down there, helping to put together and run that Sterling Ranch out there by Highlands Ranch. That thing, when it's done, it's going to be a third of the size of Highlands Ranch, which, as you know, is huge. It could be its own city right now. And frankly, I think if incorporated, it would be maybe the largest city in Douglas County. But nonetheless, super. There were so many great people that I saw there. Our friend Deb Takahara, formerly of KDVR, she is now the Public Information Director, or PID, for the sheriff's office. But they had such great folks, a lot of fire folks out there, and these awards that they gave out, and they had these video vignettes of sort of, what they did and the things surrounding it. There was a Douglas County sheriff's officer who was honored, who's an SRO, a school resource officer, for how he responded to a girl in school who had become suicidal and had been cutting on her wrists. And it was just, I don't know. It wasn't like honoring, and there's nothing wrong with this. It wasn't like honoring the heroes who are like, and then they rappelled in through these skylights and they grabbed up all of the robbers. That's legit stuff. That's all great stuff. This wasn't like that. These particular awards were focused on different aspects of these first responders, things that you might take for granted. I mean, there was one, listen, the very first one they had, and this got me thinking. I'm looking at people around the table that I got seated at, and we're all kind of raising our eyebrows. It is a 911 call by a wife saying, my husband just found out that a guy touched our daughter, and he is headed over there right now. I'm so scared. I'm so worried about what he's going to do. Please do something. So she gives them the cell phone number, and they get on the phone with this guy. And this guy is like, I am headed over there. I'm going to do something. And I'm sitting there at the table like, oh my God, this could be me, man. Like, this could totally be me in the car headed over there, because that would be what my gut tells me to do. And this dispatcher has to calmly and coolly plead with this guy to turn around. Don't go there. And he's asking all the questions that you might ask, like, is the sheriff going out there? What's the sheriff going to do? The sheriff needs to do something. Now, what's going to happen to this guy? And then this guy breaks down and starts crying on the phone and saying things like, I wasn't there for my daughter, to protect her. And so I need to be there. And then the dispatcher is like, you are not going to be there for her if you go to this guy's house. You are not going to be there for your daughter. And I'm like, Jesus, is this what these people deal with on a daily basis? Like, man, I just thought it was your routine calls like, hey, shoplifter. Hey, I saw a drunk driver. Not that those are de minimis things. I'm just like, holy intense, man. So we listened to this whole call, and sure enough, She talks him into turning around and going back and waiting at the house for the sheriffs to come by and just take a report on what they know, but just check and make sure everything's okay. I don't know what happened. I don't know anything about the case. Don't know what happened to that other guy who's the person that was accused of touching this guy's daughter. But that dispatcher saved that dude's life. I mean, in addition to keeping this guy from making an emotion-driven mistake that would have haunted him for forever, is my guess. It's just fascinating. And then they had the dispatchers from that tornado that hit Highlands Ranch, and we had friends. I was actually out of town at a baseball tournament when it happened, and we had friends who had, fences destroyed, trees ripped up, all this other stuff. But it was, I don't know, man. It was really inspiring evening. I left when it was still going on. I left after 9:00 because I got to come here and we got to talk it up in the morning. And they were still going with auction items and all this. It was really fantastic. I'm already excited for next year's. I just am so impressed with the Douglas County Foundation, Community Foundation, and law enforcement and first responders. Just really quality people, man. I'm a big Douglas County guy, and I love Doug Co. But man, that just brought a big smile to my face. It was down there at that Botanic Gardens by Chatfield. I don't know how else to describe it. Really very cool. Super, super place down there. Meanwhile, Billy, you were not dealing with first responders unless you describe first responders as the first to respond to your questions.
Yes, exactly. It was trivia last night. Very busy, nice crowd. Very, very, very north, and reminds me how much I hate traffic.
I thought you were going to say Denver.
Yeah. Oh God, just awful trying to get up there. But it was really good. It was a really, really nice big crowd, which is strange because 10 minutes before we started, place was empty. And you get a little word there. I mean, I'm talking empty. Not a single person. And then they slowly start streaming in. And so I talked to the owner and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to start about 5 to 8 minutes late. He's like, yeah, it's probably a good idea. People may be stuck in traffic or whatever. And so, yeah, I ended up with 14 different teams playing.
Wow. That seems like a lot.
For them, it is enormous. That's about twice what they normally have. And it was a lot of fun. Lots of people making fun of each other. And early on, I was playing a Billy Squier song. And guys like asking his wife, who's this? Who's this? And so I could hear the conversation. So when I transitioned out of it, I'm like, well, for all you Billy Squier fans. And so it was kind of funny that was like a recurring joke that we made over the night and made fun of him. It was cool. But it's a very interesting group because the game plays a little bit differently. They have a custom game in which you have to play both rounds, which you normally don't have to do. But in this one, the points carry over. And then like on Jeopardy, in the final question, you get to wager your points. And evidently, the people at the bar either are, by the time we get to the end of the second round, very inebriated, or they've never seen Jeopardy. One of the two, because the number of teams that risk all of the dollars is very interesting. Yeah, they get to the end and everyone's like, I risk it all. And so it's kind of funny. At the end, you kind of think,
do you suffer stuff if you lose? Is it like that where you lose points if you guess wrong?
Well, no, not if you guess wrong, but at the end in this particular game, you've amassed, let's say it's 1,500 points over the course of the 2 rounds. Now, the final question in round 2, you can decide how many of those points you want to risk. And the vast majority of the teams risk all of their points. So it's kind of funny that at the end of the entire game, our leaderboard looks like, here's someone that has 1,100 points. Here's someone with 900 points. And then a bunch of zeros. It's because everyone risks all their points and they miss the question. So, you got to figure that final question is going to be a little more difficult than most of them. But I figure the liquor is kicking in by that time. And they're very, very confident in their knowledge of minutia. So,
and are they right? Does the alcohol make them smarter?
No, not at all. Not in the least. In fact, the fun part is it also makes spelling quite difficult. Because there are a couple of questions that I have throughout the night in which they're open-ended. So a lot of times it's multiple choice, but some of them are just open-ended. You got to type it in. And I get some very creative spellings based on how far we are into the game. It depends on how many extra letters and other stuff that I get. And then inevitably I've get
how long does this whole thing last, man? When you're sitting
less
there...
than 2 hours. Yeah. I'm in and out in less than 2 hours. So, I mean, it takes me 15 to set up. And I normally do about 15, 20 minutes of, pre-show stuff. But so... It's an easy gig. So if I show up at 6, we are done by 7:50, 55, 56-ish, more or less. So
And
Yeah.
for that, you get paid $1,000.
I wish. But the money is green. It does say USA, and is a nice.
What a nice
size.
change.
Yeah.
I'm glad you wrote that into your contract
Yeah, that
because
helps.
the last money was
Yeah.
only applicable at a game called Monopoly.
Yes, exactly. Or had and they said, yes, we're paying you 10,000. You're like, great. And what is a FOT? I don't know. And why is the money purple?
A Jordanian dollar?
Exactly.
What's a Jordanian dollar?
What is that? So yeah, I made sure that I got that in the contract.
Anything awesome going on this weekend?
Not that I can think of. I got some yard work that's been put off because I've been so busy lately, and got to try to get over to my mom's house. The thing for me is the little machine over here on my right hates me this morning. So far since the show has started, I've had to log in twice because it doesn't believe I am who I said I was not a mere half hour ago. This is the
what happened
fifth.
A half hour ago?
This is this is the fifth time this morning
you've had something land.
I've had to re-log into my the system here. That evidently the
here
IT
where we're
people,
sitting,
yeah, the IT
Jeez,
people and all of that
dude.
have done a lot of the extra security stuff. And I guess, I'm so far down the totem pole that they don't believe I still work.
Well,
here.
we're moving because we think we are such a target for hackers, specifically the Chinese. We've gone to triple double verification.
Yes.
So there's 3 different double verifications as far as I know.
And it's ridiculously stupid. And
like
I keep
they
doing it
have
over
to
and over.
send a text. I think I have to have a text sent to your number to confirm that I am who I say I am, to get the text to me, to get to my email, to unlock the password to the first screen.
Yeah. The weird one is when they keep telling me they need me to send them a selfie. And I think that's a little strange. It's just a little strange.
And they've described it in great detail.
Yes. So they say,
no backlighting.
Yes.
Please wear something frilly.
Yes, exactly.
It's just awkward security measures here at Salem. I
Make
don't
the duck face. That's
listen, I don't think it escapes anyone's review that mixing up the letters to Salem spells males. So I mean, that's the issue that we're dealing with right here.
Yeah. Although this, I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud. I haven't figured out if this is a real thing or not. But your child and my child are both at CSU, and my child. Okay, I gotta do this justice. I gotta make sure I pull up this text.
Don't do that pic.
I got a text from my son last night, and he's like, "What is wrong with my school?" He lives in a very nice little
They're
apartment.
still fielding a team?
Well, no, it depends on the team they're playing for, because they have a notice that is posted around their particular dorm that says, okay, and again, I'm caution, if you're eating, please stop or tune away. It says, attention residents, every day our Wi-Fi logs have caught hundreds of unique devices accessing, wait for it.
No.
Accessing bestiality websites.
No way.
We love animals too, but not in that way.
Well, hang on. CSU is known for its animal husbandry.
Exactly.
Maybe they've just taken the husbandry
you made
part.
that joke. That's where I was thinking.
Oh my
I was like,
goodness,
wow.
man.
Yeah, it said when all the data is put into account, 32% of our residents have accessed bestiality content at some time. Yeah, this applies. They said this applies to drawn content as well. In response, any search containing words, and they give a series of words. The thing that is really sad is one of them is
spitting up in my mouth.
Is Animal Crossing, the really cute little game on Nintendo.
Animal Crossing is not bestiality.
No, it isn't. But I imagine there's really, and again, I am not going to do the research. You can, sir, if you wish.
No,
but
thanks.
Evidently, there must be some
pass,
Animal Crossing porn stuffish.
I really thought that Goat Love was about Tom Brady.
Yes, exactly.
I did not know that there was something else going on.
I thought it was.
Don't Google it.
Yeah,
because whatever jersey they're throwing on it, it's still a goat.
Yeah. So that one worried me. And the idea that they're thinking 32% of our residents, like, what, or is it just a couple of overachievers?
Should I be concerned that Trey didn't also shoot me that same concern?
Well, I'm guessing that he might be in a better dorm.
He's in a good dorm. He's in like the engineer dorm, which is fantastic.
So they're not doing that. They're just trying to look at Bill Nye's OnlyFans page.
Oh my God.
That's all they're doing. Like,
oh my
come on,
goodness.
Bill. Show me the moisture.
No.
Show me the moisture, Bill.
Just listening to him talk about climate change is enough to make me go asexual.
Like,
I just couldn't do it.
It's like, oh, Bill's making me feel a
no,
cat 5.
No,
I am feeling a cat 5 today.
Folks have now broken their radios. They haven't just turned them off or changed their station.
Sorry.
They've destroyed whatever radios they have in the car. Like, I don't ever want to listen to this ever again. Thank you, Billy, for doing that. But you've made it easy for us to try to
Yes, I
transition. Now,
have.
listen, I'm going to try to give as much time as possible for the Thorpe Report and the You Choose the News. We're not going to break any records today. I am going to continue a trend I started yesterday. And a lot of people were like, oh, did management ask you to do this? No, because nobody at management is up at this hour listening. They don't have any idea. And I think it feels like a ha-ha funny moment when we say it. I think it is 100% true, man. Not a single person that has authority over what goes on in this studio. If they're awake, they're not listening to us at 6 o'clock. I mean, this is
better things to do.
Better things to do. This is the plane starting down the runway. That's not the most exciting part.
Oh.
By the way, if you ask pilots, it's one of the two most dangerous parts of flying, but it's definitely not the funnest part of flying.
And this is dangerous as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Every morning.
This is the most dangerous part of the show.
We risk the show every morning.
But people aren't paying attention to this. You know, they're waiting until the flight attendant comes by to refresh their nuts or something. And
yes, exactly.
That's about it. So let me do this. In the 6 o'clock hour, I never get the chance to talk to you about a guy named Mitch Floria. And by the way, we need to get Mitch in. I think we're getting Gay Ribble in studio, by the way. We'll talk about that later. But
that's next week.
I think,
next week. Yeah.
I love Gay. And she's fantastic. But I want to get Mitch back in because I love Mitch's story. Mitch is a Romanian immigrant, legal from 1 billion years ago. Dude grew up under, Ceausescu, communist control. So this guy gets it, right? But he comes here to America, starts a family, starts a company called The Art of Granite. That's who puts the countertops in your house, whether it's your primary / master bedroom, finished basement, kitchen, whatever. That's what Mitch Floria has been doing now forever. And he's been doing it at such a high level. If I haven't told you about it in the 6 o'clock hour, and you've heard others, I want to remind you, when I do reads for Mitch like this right here, I got to say, every so often I will get a text from a friend or another listener, and they'll be like, oh my God, Mitch advertises on your show. We used Mitch for blank. We love Mitch. Mitch's guys are great, all this other. So be a beneficiary of that. If you're looking to prettify the inside of your house, you're finishing a basement. I've been looking at that myself. Mitch Floria and the Art of Granite is the place to go. It's just a deceptive website because it's not just granite. It's granite and marble and quartz, which is all the great man-made stuff. Anything you can imagine, they can put it together. And here's the kicker, man. This guy will give you wholesale pricing just because you're you, but just because you're a 710 listener, and you got to tell him that, he throws in something even more. He'll throw in the bedroom, the master bedroom, bathroom countertop with the kitchen countertop package. Or if you're just doing one room, and I think this would apply to a finished basement too, where you've got that wet bar going, he'll throw in the sink for free with the kitchen or with the countertop package, whatever you end up doing. All you have to do is give him a call at 303-386-5919. And I'll say that number again. It rings the phone in his pocket, 303-386-5919. You can check him out at theartofgranite.com, theartofgranite.com. I also think you ought to build in time to just drive out there and see it, man. You wouldn't buy, my guess is, you wouldn't buy a car unseen unless you knew everything there was to know about cars. This guy, you got to go out to the showroom out there at about 6th and Colfax-ish. And it's amazing how pretty things are that they have. And the size of these things that they can bend to their will, actually bend to your will. It's just fantastic. Artofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite.com. When we come back, it's going to be the good stuff, the Thorpe Report, followed by You Choose the News. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Why should you buy your next vehicle at Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram? We make car shopping easy. We have a huge inventory of new and pre-owned vehicles. We can even custom order. We make it easy. Easy financing, friendly staff. And when it comes to quality service, our expert technicians keep your vehicle in top shape. Visit us today off of Highway 25 and Plum Creek, or shop online at castlerockcdjr.com. Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Car shopping made easy.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler back with you here on the George Show, 710 KNUS. Some listeners, at least one, concerned about our breaks, Billy. This is the opposite now. It's 2 days in a row you took the break before 6:30. What gives? like just,
That's funny.
it's so funny because then
What's
we'll
going
get
on?
other texts too.
Yeah.
It's I love you people. I really do, because listeners are like a box of chocolates,
Yes, they
you
are.
know, and everybody's got a different opinion on something. I don't know if you picked up on this. We don't have a plan. There's no
not at
like,
all.
let's go to 6:40 today,
Yeah,
or let's
no plan.
bail at 6:23. There's no
Yeah.
plan. There's
None
never.
at all.
This is as Seinfeld an hour of radio as you could ever get. You know,
Oh, and somehow it works. We are always surprised. We get to the end of the hour, like, well, somehow we made it. Not really sure.
not
what
just
happened.
somehow we made it, but there's sometimes I'm like, my God, we still had more.
Yeah,
like, how did
exactly.
we have more than the time on the clock?
Yeah, how did we have more nonsense and
Well,
silliness?
what happened here?
I have no
This
idea.
is exactly what happened to Darren McKee.
Yes, it is.
It's a DMAC.
Exactly it.
The show just
Yes.
ran away from him, and he lost control of it. We're
Oh, yeah.
just pulling on the reins a little bit. You know, just today. It's a
Yeah.
Friday. We could have gone long here, but I
Yeah.
love to give, especially folks, if you're a veteran listener, you know that Fridays are all about the loser edition of You
Yeah.
Choose It. What we want to build in time for that too. And we haven't done a legit sponsor for a legit period of time, Billy, in enough. I'm afraid that we're going to bankrupt that portion of the show. I don't want to do it.
It's awful. I mean, what am I going to do when I'm not allowed to go to Jimmy John's with the extra money we make on the You Choose the News?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
What if you couldn't supersize that thing?
That
What
would
if you
be
were just
awful.
left with the handful of fries you get at Mickey
that's
D's?
that is just sadness. That's why
Can't
would you
do that.
No, you
No,
can't do that.
I like to be able to look
yeah.
at the menu and say the world is my oyster. You know
Yes,
what I mean? And just
exactly.
be able to, I'll have a QPC
Yes.
and
And-
one of your 99
Yes.
cheeseburgers, 99
Oh,
cent
yeah.
cheeseburgers.
Tell you what, I'm feeling generous. Throw in a 6 nuggets in there too.
Is the
Daddy's
sauce
feeling
more? Does
good.
the sauce cost more?
Yeah, it
Because
probably does.
we
yeah.
might need to wait till next week for
That's
me to
true.
get that too.
That's true.
Listen, without much more delay, because my God, there's been delay.
Yeah.
Let's get right to it. It's the Thorpe Report with our
Alrighty.
buddy William.
Hey, good morning, sir. Now, sunshine is staying with us for the final day of summer today. We are going to get a little of a downslope of breezing. So that means tonight, tomorrow, basically get a little cooler. Not bad. Weak cold front is going to slide into Colorado from the north. Only slightly cooler temperatures over the weekend. Sunny, breezy, 83 today. 78 is our high tomorrow. 79 on Sunday, 81 on Monday. We have an 18-year-old who was arrested for allegedly fatally shooting a 17-year-old at an Aurora gas station that happened on Wednesday. Shooting happened around 6:30 in the evening. Gas station at 18800 block of East Hampton Avenue. That's in the Seven Hills neighborhood, according to the Aurora Police Department. The victim is a 17-year-old boy taken to the hospital with life-threatening gunshot wound, later succumbed to his injuries. Arapahoe County Coroner's Office will release the victim's identity at a later time.
Billy, could you,
Yeah.
maybe for the rest of this segment, but
Yes.
in the future, consider using the voice of that dude we did from the news before,
I
where
was
it's
thinking about
like,
that.
"And Aurora,
In Aurora today.
an 18-year-old found."
That was ridiculous. That was the thing. Is part of the reason that I wanted to play that video yesterday is because I'm like, I can't believe this is a real
I
person.
know it's bad. I'd love it if you could adopt that speaking
Oh,
style
let me
just for
see.
the Thorpe Report.
Let's
you
see if we
know?
can. Well, authorities are offering a $2,000 reward for information about a woman accused of injuring several people in a shooting outside of a bar in Denver's lower downtown neighborhood. Now, the shooting happened around 11 p.m. in front of Dirk's Bentley Whiskey Row, located at 1946 Market Street. The Denver Police Department said the suspect, identified as Kenneth Rosenberg, was denied entry to the bar, then began walking away. But what is one to do in that moment after having a conversation?
Boom.
She decided, pull out my firearm and discharge it in the direction of the club, because that seems like the way to show that I'm a responsible gun owner exercising my Second Amendment rights. All righty, I can't do that the whole
No, I
time.
know. It would be too much.
Too much.
But you also need the sound of the background. That's
Yeah, the teletype machine. Yeah. Oh, okay. Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office believes there may be additional victims after a man was arrested for sexual assault on a child.
Uh-oh.
It's a 23-year-old Hayden Caudle, arrested Tuesday at Castle Rock for a sexual assault on a child, first-degree contributing, a whole bunch of other stuff. Booked into the Arapahoe County Detention Center, $250,000.
But the
cash
dude's
security
from
jump on.
Castle Rock. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
It is. And Sheriff's Office said that he met the victim through social media sites,
Mhm.
using a name and then on Snapchat. And so investigators say probably not his first time. So looking for other victims based on what he did.
Couldn't he just go to CSU and access the bestiality sites?
He
I mean,
could.
come
All
on.
the funny Animal Crossing videos. Also, Aurora Police Department said yesterday a suicide reported last week near South Sable Boulevard and East Mississippi Avenue has turned into a homicide investigation.
Oh, wow.
Aurora Police Patrol officers responded to a report of a suicide around 8:50 in the morning, 1200 block of South Dillon Way, Sable Ridge neighborhood. 911 caller reported finding the 51-year-old woman dead in a garage with apparent strangulation wounds. So evidently she didn't strangle herself.
I'm thinking that she may have been some other kind of hanging or something like that.
Could have been. Prosecutors called their first two witnesses to the stand yesterday as they sought to present digitally enhanced video body cam of the violent arrest of Elijah McClain. It's a day after the court heard opening statements from both sides in the trial against two Aurora police officers charged in the death of Elijah. So they heard from two witnesses yesterday. They provide insight on how body cameras warn and collect evidence. And
insight is really generous.
Oh, oh, good. I can't wait to hear what you say about that. Elsewhere, the city of Denver plans to clear a large homeless encampment in Capitol Hill next week after people living there need to get out of the way. They're going to move them into a hotel, at least some of them. City officials say the sweep at East 8th Avenue and Logan Street will be the first public step toward meeting Mayor Mike Johnston's goal of moving 1,000 people off the streets and into housing. 70 people living in rows of tents and other makeshift shelters clustered across from the Colorado governor's mansion are going to be moved. They'll give the opportunity to move into a hotel. They've been given a 7-day notice for clearing the camp.
They're not going to do it right there they're not putting the micro community at the governor's mansion?
Oddly enough, no.
Feels like that would be the right
It'd
move.
be amazing to do that. Yes, it seems like it. If that's where they popped up, put them there. In fact, did you see our homeless community that was gone and then reappearing within 24 hours here right outside the station?
Is it back today?
Yeah, they.
No, because I was told it was like, remember yesterday we were like, hey, it's wiped out. We had the Aurora chief in. He snapped his fingers. People disappeared, and now they're back.
Yeah, dude's back.
Holy
Well,
crap.
At least there's one enormous tent, so it's starting up again. So guy's back. He's got a huge tent. It looks like something that is expansive, and he's got several other. It's not just a regular tent. He seems to have a vestibule and an anteroom and a den, and I don't know. I don't know what he's doing.
Den?
Yeah.
Then unhoused den.
Yes, I think so. I don't know what it is, but the thing's huge. So, yeah. So
I drove right by it today, and I didn't even pay attention.
Yeah, they're there.
They must not have had the lights all plugged in,
no, not yet.
hijacking the electricity.
Yeah, they haven't. I still want to know about that. I like that you brought up the lights. Like, where are they getting the electricity
I know.
from?
Is
Where?
it solar?
Yeah. What is it?
I don't understand. There's a reason, by the way, that they're there as opposed to across the street is Cherry Creek State Park. Like, what? Why not? Are they more vigorous in enforcement at the state
I'm
park?
not sure.
Or is it the animals?
And normally they're on the other side of the fence on the Cherry Creek State Park, so they're not actually in the park, so they're skirting the rules. But because the fence is right there, normally they can provide other cover, and like Parker Road and 225 and stuff rise above. So there's a little bit of a gully that you can get out in, so you're not necessarily visible, which is part of it. I've noticed.
I mean, how many times can you be contacted by APD before they just hook you? And then I don't know.
Yeah, I know. And that's the thing. And then do we want to just start housing the homeless people at that point? Because if we're housing the homeless people, then if we're paying for, 3 hots and a cot, do we do it in a prison or somewhere else? And why? And is that and the weird part for me is it? It's strange. It is really weird, but is it slightly an argument for a micro community if the solution is to put them in jail? Because if we're going to give them food and shelter anyway, maybe try to get them better. But again, only if the micro communities offer support and substance abuse and job training. That's it, because that's not necessarily the role of the prison. I don't know.
I just think in the past, our attempts at some of this, not quite the same thing. It's turned into like a shanty town or something.
Yes, exactly.
Or, I worry about that. Like,
absolutely.
These micro communities are going to be super awesome for 6 months, and then reality is going to set in. That some of these people don't want to or cannot fix their situation. And they're like, I ain't going. You're going to have to unhouse me.
And the other part with that I keep thinking about is that, we've seen, oddly enough, the drug dealers understand marketing and consumer behavior as well.
Oh, and they do.
And if you concentrate a lot of the drug users together, the drug dealers are probably going to show up. So I'm just saying, in the micro communities, it's one of the things, and I appreciate when Mike Johnston said they're looking at security. That's one of my major concerns.
Yeah.
Because if I'm selling the heroin, the smack, the meth, the stuff like that, the crank, I'm going to those micro communities immediately, because I can go several feet and encounter many more potential customers than I could elsewhere around the city. So
That's
don't know.
that's the whole argument with the unsafe injection sites thing too, is that it's like a block away, dudes will be like dishing out the smack
That's
because
exactly it.
they know if you're going there, they know what you like.
Oh yeah, they know what you like. And have you seen the videos coming out of Philadelphia in the areas near?
No.
Oh, it is absolutely frightening. It's not quite, in my opinion, not quite on the level of Vancouver, but it is definitely Vancouver light in the neighborhoods around where they're trying to safe injections. It is scary. There was one the other day, and this is a person that is an advocate. This is not a person going, look at these awful homeless people. This is a person that is advocating for help and walking down blocks where you have every 4 or 5 feet, someone is passed out because of IV drug use. The one that got me was the person that is passed out, and 3 feet away from them is a fire that they built on the sidewalk. Middle of the sidewalk, and they built a fire. Exactly. I mean, I'm impressed with your skills. However, sidewalk, I don't know. That seems to be an issue. I don't know. I digress. But here, elsewhere,
the war on drugs is a failure, Billy. I'm just saying
yes, the drugs have won. Also, Denver Public School Board of Education announced that they're going to join a lawsuit against social media companies that alleges student mental health was negatively impacted by the companies. You don't say. Lawsuit is being prepared by 4 law firms. Yes. And the attorneys are alleging that schools have incurred costs like hiring additional mental health providers, developing new lesson plans, and hiring third parties to educate parents and students about the dangers of social media. Plus, they've had to learn all those stupid TikTok dances. No, I might have added the last part.
Hello.
The lawsuit claims that the social media companies knew from their own research about the negative impact of social media on young peoples. And the attorneys also claim the tech giants use psychological measures to keep kids on their apps as long as possible. That is called marketing. So they're looking for damages. So, yeah, surprise. That's it. That's all I got for the news. So that's
pretty good stuff. I want to spend, listen, it's not going to be like yesterday. Yesterday was the kickoff to the big trial, but in the 7 o'clock hour at some point, I do want to update you. I have spent as much time as I can. It's its own effort, by the way, to monitor through WebEx. That's this streaming service that allows you to see what's going on in the courtroom, the trial in the Elijah McClain homicide case. Anyway, oh, buddy, I don't know. And the things that I've learned too about the prosecutors on the case, we talked about one yesterday, learned some more about the second one. I can't remember how much we talked about it, but oh boy, listen, let's do this. Let's cut away for a break. When we come back, let's get ready for the loser edition of You Choose the News. Stick around. George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS. Olivia. George Brauchler right here, 710 KNUS. Billy, are you sure that 105.9 wasn't KBPI?
1067.
I think 106.7 was something else, because in my mind, I remember the old, that super sexy mouth commercial where she'd be like, KBPI rocks the Rockies,
Yeah,
105.9 KBPI.
Well, KZY, I think, was 105.9, 106.7. I think it's 106.7.
Listen, here's what concerns me, man. I never doubt you on anything with radio because you know stuff. I'm going to look this thing up. If it turns, it's almost like watching Mike Tyson get knocked out by what's his name?
Yeah, the old KBPI signal is 106.7 because they took it for the Bull, and that's where the Bull is right now.
Is it? Did you just look it up?
Yeah, that's the Bull.
Okay.
Yeah.
Frankly, I appreciate being wrong here, because had I been right, I'd be like, something is off with the universe. There's a disturbance in the universe.
No, 105.9's is Alice.
Okay, it is Alice.
Yeah, it is.
Has it?
Yes. Oh, and here's
hold on.
Mark,
Crowley's looking at Billy, giving him the. So is Billy right? Mark, he's not right.
No.
105.9 was KBPI.
No, 105.9 is Alice.
It is now.
Yeah, it's Alice now. Oh yeah, back to the 80s. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah, back to the 80s.
So
he's right,
listen,
it was KZY. No, but we were, and you know what the argument was? Not argument. The discussion was that we were talking about the Bull, and they had moved KBPI signal off of 106.7. Yeah, that was it.
Sweet goodness, man.
Yeah.
Well, listen, that's a testament to two
Thank
things.
you, Mark.
It's a testament to two things. One, we are friggin' old.
Yes.
And
stupid.
And two, even a blind squirrel, right? Like in this story, I am the blind squirrel, and I found a nut.
You're right.
And it wasn't my own.
It was back in the day.
Yeah. Hey, listen, let's turn it over to the big man for the good stuff. That's called the loser edition of You Choose the News.
Yes. Get ready, all of you losers, myself included. It is time for everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, Loser Edition. We are playing You Choose the News. We have amalgamated stories from earlier in the week that George did not pick. We are going to give them a second chance at life, a second chance of glory. But it's dependent upon, his choices. All righty, sir. Here are the ones coming back yet again that you have a chance to choose. Our headlines today are, all I wanted was to break your walls. All you ever did is wreck me. Headline number 2, sounds like a prank. Headline number 3, no one said rock fans were smart. And headline number 4, misleading headline. All righty, sir. Your choices yet again are, all I wanted to do is break your walls. All you ever did is wreck me. Sounds like a prank. No one said rock fans were smart, and misleading headline.
It wrecked me.
Was
that it?
Yeah, I think as close as we can this morning. A woman has recently spent the night in police cells because they had to pull her over. She was causing a disturbance in the 1400 block of Bay Avenue Trail in British Columbia. The local 28-year-old refused to leave a business. She had been asked to, and she said, no, I'm not. And that's when she was contacted by the Mounties. I love the fact that they actually have the Mounties. And then, yes, they were wearing the silly hats. And they said, lady, you've got to leave the area. And she says, I disagree. When the officer attempted to return to her vehicle, she blocked his path and began twerking in front of him.
What?
While yelling obscenities.
This is a Miley Cyrus story.
One wants to do. Yes, oddly enough, the strange thing is that when asked about it, Sergeant Mike Wasinowicz said, yes, she came in like a wrecking ball. Yes. I love the fact that the sergeant in charge said, yes, she came in.
I want to see that in the report.
Ball.
You know what I love too is one of the many differences between the Canadians and us. In Canada, they burst out into twerking. Down here, they pull out a gun and shoot 5 people. I mean, asked to leave an establishment. Oh, well, try this on.
Try this.
Bam, bam, bam. What the hell?
Yeah. My
Maybe
favorite part
Canada is better.
Is the 28-year-old. She twerks and curses at the same time. The combination of the two of those.
Please tell me there's body cam.
Yeah.
Please tell me there's body cam.
I hope so. All right, second choice. Sounds like a prank. No one said rock fans were smart or misleading headline.
Nobody has ever said rock fans are smart.
No one ever said rock fans are smart. And you're familiar with the band Tool and Mr. James Maynard Keenan, yes? Just nod.
I'm sorry?
Nod.
I am nodding. Can't you tell?
Yeah, the band Tool. You know
if you're looking at the YouTube or the Rumble, you can see me nodding right now.
Nodding off. Now, Tool's Maynard James Keenan owns Merkin Vineyards. That's in Scottsdale, Arizona. And they have a story that basically they try to ferment their grapes a very special way by playing music to them. Yes, the Caduceus wine is supposed to be different than anybody else's because when they process the grapes and then ferment them, they play different bands like AC/DC, Pink Floyd, Korn, in order to make the fermentation process a little more hardcore.
Does it work?
Well, recently during an interview, Matt Pinfield, formerly of MTV, sat down and was talking with Mr. Keenan and asked him about this idea. It's fascinating that you do this and you play this. And he goes, yeah, we have these playlists and played year after year to some of the fruit. We know what music was played along to the grapes to make sure these playlists stay consistent. And Pinfield asked some more questions. And that's when Keenan says, yeah, it's really just a joke.
What?
Yeah. For years, moronic rock fans have been walking around going, they paid the music to the grapes and it tasted better. No, that's not how it works, you idiots. Do you really think that after the thing is grown, anything you're going to do to it based on music is going to have any
the idea,
impact?
though. I mean,
It's a great idea.
sonic massage
Yes,
or
it
something. I don't
is.
know what it
But
is.
oh my God, it is not even based in science. It's just
Yeah, but listen, a
for
lot is
years.
not based in science that we cling to.
That's true. That
You know
is
what I
true.
mean? Like,
yeah,
by the way, text coming
but
in here.
ridiculously dumb.
I just have to say,
Yeah.
it's bittersweet. People
What? I
must
know.
clearly recognize that I'm the dimmest one
What?
during the 6 o'clock hour.
What?
Because all of these people coming to my rescue to say, you're
Yeah.
right, George, 105.9 is KBBI. And I'm just like, thank you so
not.
much. They're so nice and
No, it's
protective of me.
not. It was
because-
106.7.
because
it was
in the ba-
105.9 back in the day.
You can disagree with both the texters and Mark Crowley, but all of these people, I think it's like a little puppy that has found its way home.
Yeah.
They're like, you are special,
Yep.
you know?
So what were the call letters then of the old 106.7 when KBPI was over on the 105? What was-
106.7 KAZY.
Yes, exactly. KZ.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly it. And the signal for KZY was better. And that's why they jumped to the 106.7.
I'm
when they did
telling you,
that.
I remember the woman in the black
Oh, yeah.
t-shirt with the big
Yep.
red lips who had that
Oh,
funny
yeah.
voice that
Yep.
KBPI
Oh, yeah.
rocks the Rockies.
I have spent time on the air at both KBPI and Alice. So yeah, been there. Done
only
that.
as a caller.
Yeah. No, actually, it was called The Defendant, but it's a whole nother story.
That's great.
Alrighty,
We've got one
final
more, my
choice.
friend.
Yes. Sounds like a prank or misleading headline.
How did you get us to run out of time,
I
man?
don't
Sounds
know.
like a prank.
Sounds like a prank. We're going to a zoo in Austria. This zoo, they had a horrible thing happen recently. Two zookeepers were asked to go inside the rhino's cage, and one of them died. Now, here's the deal.
jeez.
Okay, now this is why it sounds like a prank. Evidently, the 33-year-old female zookeeper and the two zookeepers that were injured, the woman is 33, the male is 34, and they're married. So it's husband-wife team going in to put an insect deterrent on the rhino. That
Huh?
sounds like a prank. Yes, they were said, hey, go put this thing on the big thing that has a sharp horn on the end.
Oh, good God.
No. So the rhino got a little mad and actually ended up killing the woman and breaking
Holy
the dude's leg.
This is natural selection, friends.
Exactly.
Darwin has just
yeah.
sat up in his grave with a thumbs up and said, this is what I'm talking about, man. How horrible. Hey, listen, stick around. I want to update you on this crazy trial up north. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. It is the 7 o'clock hour of the George Show, final show of the week, which is good news, I think, for all involved. I spent some time yesterday doing what I told you I was going to do. I really feel like I want to do some sort of a podcast on this. It's just being able to sit down and do it. Instead, it's just easier to come here and talk with you all about it. There's a big trial, maybe the biggest criminal case in the state of Colorado in a long, long time. Taken place. We had down south, of course, Club Q, but that thing got resolved when the dude tried to avoid the death penalty with the feds. We'll still see how that shakes out. There was also that Letitia, I keep messing up the last name, Strauch case that Super DA Michael Allen headed. That was a huge case. But in terms of the metro area and the issues at stake and the coverage and the national influence over the governor's decision to appoint the attorney general to prosecute a case, this case against the 3 police officers and 2 paramedics, broken up into 2 cops, 2 paramedics, and a cop, 3 different trials up in Adams County, is about as big a thing as I can recall. And I'm not talking mass shooting big. It's not like that kind of big, but for our area, huge. And that trial began. I went through some pretty good detail yesterday on the opening statements and what was laid out. I then tuned in on WebEx, and I recommend you do that at that live. I think it's coloradojudicial.com, something. You can Google it and find it. First off, wholly painful. Oh my God. When the sidebars are going on, and a sidebar is when the attorneys approach the bench and have conversations that aren't off the record, but they're out of your hearing. And so there's just nothing going on. They either black out the screen or you see a bunch of dudes hovered around the judge's bench and they're chatting up one thing or another, and they're passing around a little microphone so that the court reporter can hear what's being said. That's painful. Lots of delays. Yesterday, they were able to get 2 and only 2 witnesses on the stand. They are at best foundational witnesses. And by foundational witnesses, I mean, you can't just show up and say, hey, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, here's some body cam from the scene. You have to have the foundation laid for the admissibility of those pieces of evidence. So one of the first things they did, the very first witness they called, and let me be honest, I don't know every witness they have available to them. I would have never, ever, never started with this witness. It's not the witness's fault. But here's what's going on. Remember I told you the very first moments of your opening statement, those are the compelling ones. You don't start out with, hello, my name is Jonathan Bunge, and I am interested in leading you down the path towards the facts. I represent the people of the state. You don't do that. That's lame. Well, the way you start your trial with your witnesses, same thing. Same thing. So we had a different set of facts with a different number of victims. I get that in the Aurora case. But the decision we made as a team was, let's lead with something compelling. Let's lead with a victim. So we put a victim on the stand to talk about, this is what happened to me in the theater that night. Now, we could have gone a million different directions. That is one potential way, and not the only right way, but one potential way to do it. They chose to go with a foundational witness, and that's the dude from the Aurora Police Department who laid the groundwork for all the body cams of the different officers that was there. And I thought, is that it? Is that the gripper witness that you have? I realize you need to have them there to get the body cams in, but is there nobody else that could lead to testify? And so in my mind, I just don't know who else they have. Identification of the victim is an issue in this case. And even though the defense may want to stipulate, no prosecutor has to accept their stipulation. Could they have led with mom? Are they going to finish with mom? Do you know what I mean? Like, could they have led with somebody that treated him in the hospital? Do you see what I'm saying? Is that you can bring the jury right there from the very first moments to why we're here. We're not here over body cam. That's not why we're here. We're here because Elijah McClain died when he shouldn't have died. And so do you bring them to that? Nonetheless, that's just more tactics. It's not substantive. All right. That's not an absolute right or wrong thing. And I'm not telling you they still can't win. I'm just saying from a tactician standpoint, I just don't think it was tactically smart. It's big law firm thinking, not like trench fighting prosecutor thinking. Anyway, so they put the dude on from Aurora, and he gets up there and talks about this. And there's some discrepancy as to timing on the body cam stuff. But again, I don't think it's effective to beat up on the foundational witnesses for this, because the evidence is coming in, right? I mean, it's coming in. So they get that Aurora guy on. He takes a period of time, and then they put on a dude who's an expert, but an expert in that he manipulates is too strong of a word because I don't want to make it seem like it's misleading. He enhances audio and video. He goes through the body cam and cleans it up. He can add lighting here. He can help with whatever the sound issues are. He can strip sound off of things. He can do slow-mo out of film that wasn't intended to be slow-mo. This guy was on the stand, no joke. If you count the lunch break, and he will for purposes of billing, by the way, this guy was on the stand 6 hours. So they got through two witnesses, two video foundational witnesses. Total yawn fest. You have burned up some of the juries really good. I want to pay attention and focus on this stuff. My sense of the takeaways for me are this. The expert that they hired, given the fact that these are two big firm out-of-state attorneys. Oh, did I tell you that? Did we know about the second guy, Billy, before we left the air? The first guy, Chris Bunge, he's from a giant law firm called Quinn Emanuel out of Chicago. The other guy trying the case with him that seems to be leading this is a dude named Dwayne Lyons, also a big-time civil lawyer from the same law firm, but out of Los Angeles. This is a law firm that has like 33 offices spread out over 12 countries. These two guys checking out the bios they put on their websites, it is hard to imagine what they're doing in this case. Each of them spent 15 seconds as assistant U.S. attorneys doing things like white collar stuff. The one guy, the Chris Bunge guy, I think I told you, his big thing is to emphasize that he works on trademark issues, patent issues, white collar criminal issues, or whatever. And it's like, well, unless Elijah McClain is a victim of fraud, what are you bringing to the table, my man? And then this other dude, Dwayne Lyons from Los Angeles, guy's been a practitioner since '86, a licensed attorney, not here in Colorado, in California. Neither of them are licensed in Colorado. That dude's website says he spent a cup of coffee as an assistant U.S. attorney more than 20 years ago. As an assistant U.S. attorney. But his big claim to fame is this dude handles white collar criminal defense. And here's some of his clients. This is what they brag about on the website. Home Depot, Shell Oil, 20th Century Fox. What is that cat doing prosecuting a case in Colorado against police officers where the issue is the cause of death? I don't know. Maybe we're going to find out that they're working pro bono, which is a big fancy Latin term for free, but bizarre. Anyway, they bring out an expert. Turns out this expert they had that enhances the video. I didn't realize this. Apparently enhancing body cam video is such a specific, very, very unique skill. You can't find anybody in the state of Colorado to do it because they went to Los Angeles to find this guy to do it. Now, I don't know what relationship he has with.
Wait. But the TV shows and the movies tell me that any IT person can do it because anytime we're on the TV, they're like, "Can you enhance the video?" Of course. Click, 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 and then we can see everything. That's not how it works.
They go from a satellite shot to DNA. You know what I mean? They're like, "Oh, look at that."
Yes. You mean they're lying to me?
Yeah, I think they are.
Oh.
But what I didn't realize is this is such a unique skill. You can only find this one guy out in Los Angeles.
It's just Steve.
It's just this. I can't remember this cat's name.
Oh, man.
But by the way, he's not in Los Angeles anymore alone. He's now moved into Fort Lauderdale. So you and I are footing the bill to fly him back and forth from parts not in Colorado to Colorado. But wait, it gets better.
Seems smart.
His hourly rate to clean up the video and stuff. Remember, this guy isn't a surgeon. Is $445 an hour. Billy's eyes just shot huge. He's like, I can clean up audio.
Yeah, how you can do that?
I'm
up vastly underpaid.
I'll tell you about the testimony. Up until the moment he took the stand, and I mean probably traveled from Fort Lauderdale, he had already on this case billed you and me, the state of Colorado, $125,000. $125,000
really?
To tune up audio and video from a body cam. Oh my God, yeah.
Wow.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, I'm excited.
For testimony, dude bills $525 an hour.
What?
$525.
Oh,
that is
Lord.
more than the mental health experts billed that we had in the Aurora Theater case.
Wow.
This guy also gets paid his airfare, his hotel, his food, and the time it takes, like portal to portal, door to door.
No way.
We're all paying for that. At the end of the day, my guess is this guy's bill is well north of $150,000 to clean up the audio and the video. We couldn't have spent that here in Colorado, or even half of that to find. Don't the TV people do this?
Yeah, nobody. There isn't
nobody.
There's nobody down there at CU Denver or over at the DU or
nope.
No.
But this is where
really?
My son would have done it for $50,000.
Exactly.
And he's 16.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
But this is where it gets interesting. They go to what they know. And so when you get an LA-based, big-time silk-stocking law firm guy, who does he turn to? A dude from LA. Guy's on Wilshire Boulevard, has his office on Wilshire Boulevard. Goes and gets that guy. They meet with him in his office, all this stuff. Well, this becomes an issue in cross-examination. Harvey's associate or partner, I'm not sure what Steve is, but he starts cross-examining him. There is apparently a court order at the bench, I'm guessing, just based off of some of the things the judge said, like based on my ruling, blah, blah, blah. It is clear that these two out-of-state special prosecutors do not want the jury to know that they're out of state. Think about that. They do not want them to know. So every time Steve got into cross-examination with this LA Fort Lauderdale based guy about meeting with the AG's office in LA, if it got close to any, like at one point, he's like, did you meet with anybody at this table? You know, with them. Objection, and the judge would shut him down. Now, I'm not saying the judge did anything wrong. It just made me sensitive to the idea that, oh, these guys don't want the jury to know that they're not one of us. They're not from here. And they're using resources that aren't from amongst us either, which is crazy. So this thing turns into a discussion. And I'll say this. I did not find, other than the exploring of the cost, which is crazy, which I think just makes this guy seem so distant from anybody on the jury. Like nobody can wrap their mind around, you enhanced video for $125,000. You're getting paid $525 an hour to sit here and tell us about video and audio. Craziness. But other than that, you don't beat up this witness other than that, because he's not a bad guy. He just overbills us for what he does. But that doesn't make him a bad guy, and it doesn't make he's not a liar. There are witnesses that will be liars or that you want to make look like a liar if you're a defense attorney. This ain't that guy. This guy isn't out there like changing timestamps, and it's all coming into evidence. Hell, the prosecutor did a good job of saying in response to an objection to its admissibility, Your Honor, they used this guy's video in their opening statement. Pretty good punch, pretty good retort. So you don't beat this guy down the way I think that Steve was trying to beat him down. There were things to get from him, and I think Steve got him. But the tone and the pace and the belaboring certain points, I thought, this isn't that guy. There will be a witness, and my guess is it'll be the medical examiner, hired gun they brought in from outside the state of Colorado. See a theme there? That's the guy that you're going to have to dismantle, not this dude. This dude is to just highlight that it's out-of-state rich dude spending our money, all that other stuff, that, and for whatever value that is. But that video's coming in, and I think it all got admitted in. And this guy is now back in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, I guess, learning how to spend Colorado taxpayer money. Nonetheless, and what I would have asked, by the way, that didn't get asked is, what percentage of your annual income was this case last year? And I'm sure it'll be objection, relevance. Well, let me tell you the relevance. The relevance is how important this specific case and working the hell out of this specific case and coming to testify on this specific case is to this guy. It goes towards bias. It goes towards motivation. And the other part that got missed in this was the reason it's important to know whether or not this guy has worked with the AG before, the LA-based AG, is to know that, hey, listen, if this guy's getting $125,000 of business from this relationship, if he doesn't perform well on the stand for this guy, maybe he doesn't hire him again. Or maybe if he does a great job, the guy hires him a bunch more times for his big silk stocking law firm. They didn't explore that. And I don't know what the answer is. Maybe they couldn't explore it, but there's just a lot of weirdness going on in the early parts of this thing. In terms of the explosiveness of the evidence, zero. These were two guys, in my opinion, that could have gotten on and off the stand in the morning, but for whatever reason, procedural and tactics and all this other stuff, it stretched out. I have no idea what's going to happen today, but man, do I want to keep watching this thing. It is fascinating to me. So the three members of this team that are on there, and now we heard from the AG's office, Billy reached out to a guy named Pacheco and said, hey, can you get us the prosecution team? First name on the list is Natalie Hanlon Lee, L-E-H. One, she ain't no criminal prosecutor. She was a partner in a big-time Denver law firm forever called Faegre. I think that's right, Faegre. She was in that law firm forever before Phil tapped her. Phil loves the civil attorneys. Phil loves him some civil attorneys. Brings her. She's not on this case. Haven't heard her name associated with the case. Look in the courtroom. Look on WebEx. She ain't there. If she's there, she's out in the hallway off camera because the only three dudes at the table are all dudes. It's this Chris Bunge guy. Jonathan's his first name, but Chris Bunge, the Chicago guy, and Dwayne Lyons, the LA guy, neither of whom seem to have ever touched a homicide case. That's really interesting, isn't it? This is a homicide case. And a guy named Jason, and I'm not going to do his last name justice, and I'm not trying to mispronounce it. Jason Slothober, Slothober, Slothober. I don't know Jason. I could know Jason only because he came out of the 9th. The 9th Judicial District is Glenwood Springs, Pitkin County, Aspen, all that stuff. The DA, based on his time in service, he only spent 3 years there. And 3 years in the mountains in prosecution isn't nothing, but it's not like 3 years in Aurora. Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't have a bunch of dead bodies in Glenwood Springs. People aren't going to the hot springs and committing murders. He spent 3 years up there, worked for a buddy of mine, a guy named Jeff Cheney, super DA. Jeff's also a veteran, retired from the Army, deployed. Guy's a superstar. So Jeff hired him. That says something to me, but he was only there 3 years. He leaves. He goes to Phil's office, but it's not Phil's office at the time. It must have been Cynthia. And you know what he's done since then? White collar crime. What is it about the AG's office with their cajillion employees that they can't come up with anybody other than a less than 10-year white-collar criminal prosecutor to be the token on this out-of-state prosecution case? I don't know the answer, but nobody's asking Phil these questions. Just to give you some insight, the AG's personnel, the number of people that it hires, in just the time that Phil's been AG, has exploded by 20%. Personnel has exploded by 20%. Conversely, Salem's has been reduced by, got to be 50%. And I'm just saying that's a measure of the economy, right? But not the AG's office, man. This thing's exploding. And we had to go out of state to find, maybe they're volunteers. Well, we don't know yet. But 2 civil guys who apparently have never handled a dead body case. So very, very interesting. Maybe they have. Maybe we'll find out that, oh yeah, 25 years ago, they did. They handled a careless with death case on federal property or something. Anyway, that's what's going on with this case so far. It doesn't, by the way, nothing that happened yesterday answers the questions about who's responsible for Elijah's death. None of it does it. This is all just foundational groundwork to be able to now use those body cams with future witnesses. That's exactly what it is. It had to happen. I question whether it had to happen on day one. Are those your first 2 witnesses? Damn, man. I don't know. What's that, Bill? Well, Bill asked, what would I have led with? I would have wanted to find somebody who could talk about Elijah McClain. You didn't need, in my opinion, you didn't need the body cam to have someone from the ER or to have some, you know what I mean? Or to have, you don't need that person. But this is a case about the death of Elijah McClain, an untimely death of an innocent kid on the street. Regardless of who's responsible for what, that fact remains immutable. He did nothing wrong, and he is dead for nothing that's his fault. Having said that, to start off this compelling emotional case with the foundational nuts and bolts of, and who has custody of the videos, and are these videos in the same condition that yawn fest, man. You have to put them on. But first, do you have to lead with them? I don't know. I mean, again, I don't know the rest of their witness list. I don't know that we're ever going to know that. I did reach out to a reporter friend to say, hey, can we get a copy of the questionnaire now that the jury's been seated? They obviously don't want that floating around while there are potential people in the public out there getting ready to go into court. But it's over now. I want to see the questionnaire. I want to see what the issues are that they focused on. I can probably guess, but I want to see that. And then today, man, I'll do what I can. I'm very, very busy this weekend and today, but I'm going to try to keep the WebEx going. Yesterday, it was laptop was fired up to WebEx. Phone would be fired up to a Zoom call. And meanwhile, I'm still typing other things. While the WebEx is going, I'm typing up other things like the column. I mean, it was frenetic. I'm sure I missed some stuff. Here's a couple texts. Joan, so do you think the overbilling has any kickback value? Zero. Absolutely zero. There's no need to make this more than what it is. And what it is it seems like to me is a waste of taxpayer money to do something we likely could have done at the same quality right here in the state of Colorado. Can't tell you that for sure because I don't know this guy, but we've had video enhanced before. You know who's done ours? The FBI. And you know what they charge for it? Zero, because they already getting paid. So the question here is, why didn't they send these body-worn cameras to Quantico to get them? I don't know. Instead, they went with an LA-based Wilshire Boulevard-housed video dude. I don't know. That bills a ton of money. I don't know the answer. What's that, Bill? That's it. Professor knows big firm, big money stuff. Here's another text. How much money did the law firm that these 2 special prosecutors donate to Phil Weiser's campaign? I don't know. My guess is they're not that stupid if that was going to be an issue. I don't think that this is a tit for tat thing on their end. Like they've given money and then now Phil, I don't think you're going to find any evidence of that is my guess. Perhaps they gave to a third party effort that you and I could never trace to help get Phil in place. But there was a text yesterday I thought that was far more telling, which is, hey, were these guys at the big Hawaii boondoggle where Phil led that National Attorney Generals for Money Association thing that he did that we talked about a while ago? I don't know the answer to that. But I do think it is a fair question for the public to ask, why did you go? Let's just presume the best. They're volunteers. They're doing it for pro bono, which is also ridiculous, but they're doing it for. Where did you meet these guys? What made you think, I think these guys are better suited to do this than my own people or any of the 800 plus state prosecutors in Colorado who let me take this Dwayne Lyons guy. On the website, it touts he has 25 jury trials. 25? You know, I got people I hired that within about 2 years have more than 25 jury trials. 25 jury trials is like a catnap in state prosecution. That is nothing. And they're going to say, but they were very complicated and they were weeks long. And I don't care, because what they weren't was homicide and they weren't Colorado law. So I don't know what we're doing, folks. And I want to continue to remind you, none of what I'm saying is relevant to the issue of whether or not they could win. They absolutely could win. But that's not the point. The point is this the best we had? We had to go outside the state for our experts and our prosecutors to come here and get justice for this young guy who got killed on Colorado streets. Really? I don't know. Weird. Come on, George. These are theatrical lawyers. Just another episode of LA Law. I want it to be theatrical, but you watch these guys and they are competent. But they're not, man, I'm not watching this like, ooh, this looks like Suits. This looks like LA. I'm not watching this like that. These dudes are not those guys. Whatever skills they're bringing to the courtroom, they're either hiding or they're muted by inexperience. That's all I can think of. Another text, corruption is the answer. I don't think it's corruption the way you think it is. I don't think this is a quid pro quo. I honest to God don't understand what's going on here. But when you are a guy who's never spent 10 seconds in a courtroom and you hire a bunch of people to whisper in your ear who are also people who don't do local prosecution and have never been in the criminal justice game, my guess is this is the advice you get. Ooh, I saw this guy at a conference once. He's thrilling. He's wonderful. He's done so many things. 30 years ago, he handled the blank case. Like, his clients are 20th Century Fox. I mean, I just don't know. Whatever these guys are bringing to the table, maybe it'll come out later. Maybe we'll see something super awesome later. But for right now, it's just interesting. I encourage you to watch it. Don't just trust my critique on it. Watch this thing when you can. It's important. It'll help you understand criminal justice. It'll help you understand what goes on in our courtrooms here in the state of Colorado, and it'll give you an insider view to one of the most significant cases. That's not me saying it. That's Jared Polis saying it. Most significant cases in the state of Colorado. Listen, we don't have to continue this talk, but the texts keep coming in. I'm happy to take your calls on this as well. Your chance to quiz the former prosecutor, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes, all in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler, George Show 710 KNUS. Lots of texts. I mean, interestingly, one call. I share with you everything that takes place here, by the way. Off air, caller called in and said, "Why are you still talking about this?" Well, suck it. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. You're talking to the former district attorney of a jurisdiction that handled cases just like this. And I'll be honest, if something like this happened in my jurisdiction, and I didn't do what Dave did, which was to look at the evidence and say, you know, hey, I can't prove this beyond a reasonable doubt, which was the right answer, given the evidence that he had. If I was getting appointed on this, I'm not outsourcing this to anyone outside the state of Colorado. Not only am I not outsourcing it, I'm the guy carrying the water in the courtroom. Now, clearly, I would have surrounded myself with the best of the best in my office. But unlike Phil, I apparently surrounded myself with the best of the best. Phil didn't. So Phil's got, in fact, somebody texted in and said, shouldn't Phil have said to the governor when he got appointed, hey, I don't have the horses, man. I don't have anybody on my staff capable of leading this prosecution. Please don't appoint me. Because I wonder if the governor knew this when he said, and he says in his order, I printed him out a while ago. I can't remember the exact order number, but his first order, this is a matter in which the attorney general must be the state's prosecutor. That's how important this case is. Well, he is only in name, right? Like, he ain't prosecuting this case. Nobody that really works for him is. It sounds like it's a couple silk stocking volunteer dudes who are like, oh, this will be cool. So now maybe the guy's website will say 20th Century Fox, Home Depot, Shell Oil, and the state of Colorado. I just don't get it. Here's a text, George. I'm an attorney who has actually tried applying to the AG's office. It's starting to be considered among my peers as an insider's club. Recruiter lady, quote, really gatekeeps, and the reasons seem arbitrary and nonsensical. I've lost a lot of trust in them as a result. Well, that's very interesting. Here's another one. After the jury was dismissed, the prosecution complained to the judge about an instance when defense referred to them being from out of state. Said he thought they had a gentleman's agreement not to do that, as discussed in a pretrial hearing. Judge then made it a court order not to do it. Prosecution also referred to them doing the trial pro bono. Interesting. Why does that matter? I mean, honestly, that's a head scratcher too. Listen, if it was, I'm going to keep using him as an example because I think he's a great one. If Mitch Morrissey had retired and moved out of state and Phil went to Mitch Morrissey and said, hey man, I need you on this one. Can you come? I mean, dude's an expert in a billion different things in the courtroom. And he volunteered his time, we'd be like, Mitch is really cool. That's great. But Mitch knows what he's doing. I mean, this is like, I would volunteer to play on the Nuggets. You wouldn't have to pay me a penny. Spoiler alert, you're going to get exactly what you paid for. I mean, yeah, I'd be a volunteer astronaut. But this idea that, hey, we're doing this pro bono, it's like, do you know why you're doing it pro bono? Because nobody in their right friggin' mind would pay you to do this. You don't have the background for it. Someone else texted in, screw those listeners, love your insights. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dad, for listening again and texting in. Another text, super sketch when you and people you know who are qualified, apply to numerous positions and get zero follow-up, poorly managed. Yeah, that could be too. Guy has exploded the administration of that office. He has grown that. I mean, this thing is on steroids. The AG's office has blown up in terms of budget and staffing. And that in and of itself is its own issue. That's a different show. But to do that, and then when confronted with this giant case, look around your own people and go, whew, nope, none of you. I mean, who's that on? Here's one. Keep talking about it. I'm learning a ton and I love it. Another one. Great commentary on the trial, but settle down. The professor and the Boulder Mafia know way more than an elected DA. I'm shocked no one can download the trial video to watch or edit it. I want to be able to watch the trial after the fact. Here's what I've heard from the folks at the court, and I'm not attributing it to any official source, but this is my understanding. Their concern is that during this 3 to 4 week trial, even though there's a sequestration order, the risk of the jurors being exposed to things short of the little snippets they entitled the media to play is a risk that they're just not willing to take. I don't agree with that, by the way. I know that during the Aurora case, every damn day was put up on the internet. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it's not a reckless decision. It's just one I don't agree with, but there it is. So that's why I'm trying to listen. Here's one. Budweiser is doing a buy into this law firm when he leaves his position here in Colorado. Maybe. I don't think so. I don't know that they have an office here. I know they've got some paperwork they filed with the Secretary of State's office. I don't know if they have a physical presence. That would be even more disturbing, right? Like we couldn't even go to a big silk stocking law firm here. You know who you could have hired, Phil? How about Stan Garnett? Stan Garnett is a legit prosecutor, former elected DA. You've got Mitch Morrissey. Hell, Bill Ritter. I mean, these are guys that were DAs that were actually in the courtroom doing the stuff. Instead, we go to guys who've never been state prosecutors from others. I just don't get it. Here's one from our friend Alexa. Remind me how many out-of-state attorneys were brought in for the Aurora Theater and STEM shootings. Does it round up to zero? It does. Exactly zero. How can you get answers out of the AG's office? Super good question. Now, one is the core, the Colorado Open Records Act request. You can do that. They can stymie you and befuddle you and count on the fact that you are unlikely to have an attorney that can bring them to heel in a courtroom. But more than that, this little trick that government agencies play is to say, well, it will take us 20 man hours to find that information, and we'll bill that out at any arbitrarily set number, $200 an hour. So if you can front load us with $4,000, we will do the search and provide you with I mean, that's how it works. That's what they end up doing. 303-696-1971 is the number. But let me just read a couple more texts here. Corruption. Another one saying corruption. I just don't think it's that kind of corruption. I really do think, and I think that Billy's right. This isn't about money changing hands or scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It may be optimistic about that. Like, hey, if I do this, maybe down the road when I run for governor, these guys will throw some dollars into a third. Maybe it's like that. I really do think at the end of the day, it comes down to Phil is a silk stocking, big firm kind of guy. That's who he has always valued. That's who he has always prized. That's who he surrounded himself with at the AG's office. That's the thing that he loves, rubbing elbows with them. Those are the people he invites to come out to Hawaii for his shindig out there. This is his world. The people he doesn't understand are the blue collar workers of the law. Those are your prosecutors. He doesn't understand them. They scare him because they're in the courtrooms doing stuff that he can't do. And it probably doesn't help that the last two guys that tried to tear him apart for AG were prosecutors. I mean, he just has an aversion to those folks. He much prefers the people that bill apparently $1,000 an hour or whatever. 303-696-1971. More text coming in. Somebody texted in and said, with fire emojis, quote, whatever skills they're bringing to the courtroom, they're hiding. That's maybe that's indelicate and rude. I don't know. I don't really care. Hey, listen, let's do this. Gosh, man, the texts keep coming. How can they prosecute a case in Colorado if they're not licensed to practice in Colorado? I apologize if you've already answered this. Very fair question. There is a procedure out there, and I know a ton of people that have used this. It's called pro hoc vice. And Billy, you looked that up. What is that? What does the actual Latin mean?
On this occasion.
On this occasion. So on a case-by-case basis, you can petition the court for permission to show up and service a client, to represent them. But there's rules, and the rules are you have to have an attorney that is licensed in that jurisdiction, promise to make sure that you're familiar with and you abide by the local rules and the ethics and all that other stuff. My question is, for these guys, who is it? For these 30 plus year civil attorneys, is it the 7-year white collar prosecutor from the AG's office that's supervising them? Well, it's not Phil. It's not, what's her name, Lay. It's not her. They're not in the courtroom. So they must have entrusted the 7-year white collar guy to this. Craziness. Joan from Lakewood, KBB doesn't have a license in Colorado either. Oh, well, she's not prosecuting the case, although I'd kind of like to see her prosecute the case. If the lawyers don't fit, you must acquit. That's very, very clever. Listen, let's do this. Let's cut away for a break. When we come back, we're going to get made smarter. We get to be visited by the big guy today, guys. If it's Friday, it must be BG on the GB show. That is Brian Gray from Alpine Planning. When we come back, George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. No time to lose. Let's get made smarter at the end of the week by the Alpine Planning guys. It's the big man, Brian Gray. Brian, how are you?
Good. How you doing, George?
Buddy, I'm living the dream. I'm anxious to see how local sports turns out. I know you're a North Carolina guy. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah.
I'm anxious to see what happens with Buffs, Oregon, and Buffs, Oregon. That's really what I'm hoping to find out.
Well, 21. I know the odds makers got Oregon. They got them a 21-point favorite. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
It is. It is. What's going on out there in the fight? By the way, I already have a text. I announced you're going to be on the show. Someone texts in and says, ask Brian Gray if it's too late to get a financial advisor if you're almost 60.
No, absolutely not. It's never too late to start planning for retirement.
I love to hear that. That's good because
All
I need
right.
to start. Go ahead with what?
Well, I tell you what, let's get this week over because it's been awful for the market. Just this week alone, the Nasdaq's down 3.1%, S&P's down 2.5%, and we're not starting off too good today. We got the Dow down 31 points, S&P's up 7, and the Nasdaq's up 58. You know, we've had 11 interest rate hikes so far. The Fed's going to meet again in November. They did not raise the rates at the last meeting, but they are starting to show their hand a little bit. They want to keep rates higher as they intend to probably jack it up another quarter point here in November. So we got the auto strike going on. We got the potential government shutdown going on. Just got a lot of stuff going on out there right now, George. So if anybody's looking to get that second opinion on their portfolio, by all means, give us a call.
Brian, best guess on one of the causes for this. Is it the pessimism about the government shutdown? Is it something? I mean, the rate hikes obviously have their impact, but what else is causing this?
I think it's just consumers. The fear is driving the market right now. So if we can, ignore all the noise, I think that would help out quite a bit. But, like I said, they're probably going to raise rates again in November. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
This is the flip side of the advice you've given before, which is don't go crazy just because the market's doing super well. Just don't go out there and just start throwing things around and moving things around because you're trying to catch the wave. This is like the opposite of that, which is, look, don't freak out just because we're in this little bit of a trough here.
Yeah, you got to have a plan. If you got a plan, just stick to it. And we'll get through this. We've been through it in the past, but we'll get through it. Let's just get through the election season, and then we'll go on from there.
How big of a deal do you think that is, Brian? The election, like
I think
who wins?
I think it's going to be huge because they're going to be making promises, trying to get votes, and anytime a candidate opens their mouth just a little bit, the market reacts to that. So we're going to have to keep an eye on it, keep it close to the vest. But all in all, I think it's going to be pretty good.
Alpine Planning Group is a comprehensive financial planning firm committed to improving your long-term, that's the key, long-term financial success. Investing, it's a matter of trust, and you can hear it in Brian's voice. They're just prepared to earn yours. Call them today, 303-843-0918, 303-843-0918. Brian, have a great weekend.
Hey, you too, George.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Woodbury Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC and registered investment advisor. Alpine Planning Group and Woodbury Financial Services, Inc. are not affiliated entities. 14 West Dry Creek Circle, Littleton, Colorado, 80120.
Listen, we're running out of time for this segment. A couple other texts that have come in. I believe that Phil hired out-of-state lawyers because this is a sketchy case, and with the Times becoming more pro-police, the jury might acquit, and it would hurt Phil's campaign for governor. I don't think it's that. And I understand where that sentiment comes from, by the way, because this dude seems to operate out of fear as much as anything, even though he's this constant source of optimism when he's on social media. I do think he's afraid of this case quite a bit. In fact, I'm sure that this was a sore spot between he and Jared when it got dumped on his lap. I'm pretty sure Jared didn't expect him to, though, go out of state. I really think this is what this guy values. So Joan texted this too. He said, I believe that Phil hired out. Oh, I'm sorry. This was the Harvard one. Do we know where these out-of-state lawyers went to school? Phil's also impressed by Harvard-like guys. He is. Remember, this is an NYU dude who ended up clerking for RBG. He's ridden that thing into the ground. And that's who he knows and loves, man. He values people that did the Ivy League thing that he can rub elbows with and all that. I just don't think he understands. I think he's afraid of the trench fighters. I think he doesn't understand the blue collar prosecutor types. And we'll see. Doesn't mean the outcome is going to be a bad one for him. I just think it's such a questionable way to handle this kind of huge case. But what do I know? I'm not the AG. People, listen, when we come back, we're going to change up the topic. Stick around. George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you halfway through the Friday show on 710 KNUS. My thanks to lots of texters, not that many callers, in fact, 0, but a ton of texts on this topic of this trial and sort of how it's being funded and organized and managed by the AG. This topic is not our topic for this hour, but it's not going away. Every day that I get a chance to listen to, I'll take some notes today too, on the trial and give you my perspective. You will get your own Colorado version of court TV, if you will, except it'll be court radio or court rumble or court YouTube or whatever the hell you want to call it. I'll continue to do this. One, I'm fascinated with it. But two, I mean, I don't get it. This is unprecedented. I've just never seen anything like this. I presume the governor didn't know this is what was going to happen when he appointed Silk Stocking Phil, but there we go. And we'll cover that much later. Now, here's one thing, though, and it won't affect the prosecution of Elijah McClain. And that is the government shutdown, the looming government shutdown. I have been hearing from dudes who are in a position to know, that doesn't mean that they're in the know, who have been saying for over a week now. Remember, a week ago, I was in Newport taking care of some military business. And a lot of the folks that I talked to there are folks that are in and around important places in the DC area. And while at the time they'd said, hey, I don't think it's a certainty, I think we're definitely leaning into a shutdown. And the debate was, how long would the shutdown be? And I thought, dang, I don't want a government shutdown. And I'll tell you the reason I don't want the government shutdown is every single time the government's shut down, in my memory, Republicans have paid for it at the polls. I can't think of the last time the government got shut down and we did better than we did before the government shutdown. It just feels like part of it is we don't get the narrative. We'll never get the narrative because the legacy media, the mainstream media, they're never going to pitch this our way, even though we think we have the best reasons for doing it. That's why it always costs us. I mean, we just got to, in my opinion, accept that if we're doing this, we're going to do this and lose seats in the next Congress. And that means losing control of the Congress. I mean, it's only, 4 or 5 seats that we have the majority right now anyway. Is it worth it? So the question is, and I'm looking at some of these stories about, man, Kevin McCarthy appears to have been staggered by a couple different things. One is he tried to get some things done on what should have been an easy vote. And the Matt Gaetzes and I think the MTGs and the others are, and this is what he said, a quote, they're trying to burn the place down. This is a Yahoo News article. After a nightmare week of being steamrolled by conservative hardliners and subsequently slammed by fed-up moderates, McCarthy suffered another humiliating defeat when a vote to bring a defense spending bill, defense folks, to the floor failed on Thursday morning, forcing him to send House members home for the week without a government funding deal in sight. That's right. Go to your rooms and think about what you just did, is Papa Billy's response right there. I don't know how this turns out, but if I had to bet, I'd bet that we're headed for a government shutdown. Now, you can do the math. I mean, a week from today, which is the last working day of September, is the 29th of September. That gives us the 1 day to figure this out. That gives us Saturday to figure this out. And for those of you that wonder, and I'm not patronizing you, I'm not disrespecting you. If you wonder why is this a government shutdown thing for this coming weekend, a week from this weekend, it's because the federal fiscal year, which is different than the state fiscal year, starts on October the 1st and ends on September the 30th. So without additional funding in place, all the monies that get appropriated tend to be year in and year out. So on the 30th at midnight, ding, bing, the money goes away. And we'll talk about what that means here and what agencies get affected and what don't get affected. At the state level, it's different. It's July 1st to June 30th. Why the difference? Couldn't possibly tell you. Really couldn't tell you. The only thing I know about the calendar is that the one constitutional change that I would make is that election day for Congress, for the Senate, for president would always fall on tax day. It would always fall on April the 15th. You want a reminder about what you're doing with these clowns, sending them to the swamp. That's it right there. But that's aside from this. So I did some research. I did some research on what happens when the government gets shut down. And as you can imagine, that's kind of a big deal on the social medias. You can find this anywhere. Here's an article from today, 3:35 in the morning. It's Reuters. It's called U.S. Government Shutdown. What is it and who would be affected? It starts off, I think, in a bit of a priority order, which I like, but here's one, military. And basically what it says is all military members would remain at their posts, active duty military members, that is for sure. But 800,000 civilian employees who, folks, do a ton of the operational heavy lifting work of the federal government behind the scenes for sure, they would be furloughed. Now, some of them that are in those got to have them positions, they'll be ordered back in. I don't know if they get paid or not, but they'll be ordered back in. All of our military contracts would continue to be paid. All that stuff would keep going. But the new stuff, new contracts, extensions, all of that, those would not take place until funding is in place. Now, I don't know if you heard this, but the guy that wants to be president of the United States, who was president of the United States, his name's Donald Trump. He took to social media, he took to Truth Social to say, and here's a quote, Republicans in Congress can and must defund all aspects of crooked Joe Biden's weaponized government. It's the last chance to defund these political prosecutions against me and other patriots. Folks, that's just flat ignorant, because nothing changes when the government shuts down regarding the prosecutions of Donald Trump. Not a single thing. That Office of Special Counsel, those special counsel things, they get funding in perpetuity. It is not limited by things like this. It would continue on. And I will tell you this too, because it's law enforcement, and that's what DOJ does, even if the funding were to be pulled away while the government was shut down, those folks would still be on the job working, and they would get back funded. They'd get more money in the paycheck once it finally got released. That's the silliness of all this. It's not like when you furlough the DOD folks for a week or 2 weeks, we've saved a week or 2 weeks of pay. That's not going to happen. They're still going to get their pay. They just won't have worked for a week or 2 weeks. That's how it happens every single time a budget crisis like this occurs. But there are a lot of, this is just, I don't know what you make of this, but look, when the guy that wants to be president doesn't understand how the budget works, isn't that a problem? Isn't that a thing? It's just weird. It's just, I don't get how he doesn't know how the money works. And then, of course, Matt Gaetz says, hey, look, the president opposes the continuing resolution. Hold the line. Matt Gaetz is smart enough not to say, hey, let's defund the prosecutions, because it can't happen that way. That's not how it works. But I guess my question is, 303-696-1971 is, do you want to see the government shut down? What is your expectation? What are the benefits that come from shutting the government down? I could get there. You can convince me. I just know that politically speaking, we continue to take it in the chops because of the mainstream media whenever the government gets shut down. They're going to go find those furloughed employees and say, Jody was going to go buy gifts for her 5-year-old's birthday, but now she's reluctant because the money has stopped. I mean, that's what's going to happen right before Christmas. They're going to do that. Halloween is going to be dim this year. Instead of candy bought from the local Walmart, they'll be digging through the trash can looking for half-eaten sausages and buns. I mean, those are the stories that we get. I don't think this makes a lot of sense for us right now. I don't know why Kevin McCarthy's struggling, other than that the margin is so thin for Republicans that any defectors end up upending the apple cart. But do you want to see the government shut down? And if so, why? Why do you want to see this government go into furlough status with these employees? 303-696-1971. Some of the texts, and by the way, some of them still on our old topic here. Eric Manning says, breaking news, New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez and his wife indicted on corruption charges. Not corruption, on bribery. I realize it feels like that's part of the same paragraph, but it's specifically bribery. That's true. And he says, isn't this twice for this Democrat crook? I don't think he got convicted the first time. Another one, maybe no Colorado prosecutors thought the case was justified. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? What if the answer is Phil looked around and tried to get the people he can't relate to help him out on the case and everybody said no? What does that say either about the case or about him? I don't know. Georgie, a blue-collared lawyer doesn't exist. They are white-collar workers. Why do you keep calling them blue-collar lawyers? A blue-collared worker is a real, all caps, hardworking person who actually get dirty and sweaty while working. They are the ones who put your floors in, work in factories, election plumber, farmers, tradesmen, women. A lawyer wouldn't know which end of the shovel to use. Well, that's obviously silliness. Of course, most of the days when I wear a suit and a shirt with a collar, it is blue, by the way. So it is literally a blue collar. But I get your point. My point was to analogize. It wasn't to say that. It's to say that in the spectrum of legal work, your blue-collared attorneys, your trench fighters, those are the ones that are in the courtrooms every day. It's not the ones out on the 17th Street Mall billing $500 to $1,000 an hour, wearing, $5,000 suits and pushing paper around, and they have assistants running everywhere. That, by analogy, they are the blue-collared workers, not that they're actually doing plumber work or installing floors and all that other stuff, but I think you get that. Joan says, I agree with you. No shutdown. Joan agrees with me. Everybody mark today down on the calendar. It is 8/16 on 22 September. Joan from Lakewood agrees with me. No shutdown. But what do you think? 303-696-1971. Here's some more. It says law enforcement, agents at the FBI, DEA, Secret Service, blah, 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 blah. They remain on the job. Prison staffers remain on the job. Criminal prosecutions, including the federal cases against DJT, would continue. However, most civil litigation would be postponed. Aid to local police departments and other grants could be delayed. This is the other thing I see as I've gone through this long article, is that the impact to funding is kind of 50-50. Some of it's, yep, the funds will dry up. You won't be able to do this unless they've already been appropriated. You can always spend what's been appropriated, but the new stuff won't happen. The real thing is the delay. The delay, because all of those civilian personnel who process the payments and do all that stuff, they're going to be furloughed. So even though the money's there and it's available, can't get it from point A to point B. 303-696-1971. Let's turn to the phone lines here. Tom from Arvada, you're on 710. What do you think, Tom?
Hello, George.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, listen, this thing about the Republicans shutting down the government.
Yep.
I don't see how the Republicans are shutting down the government at all. And I am just so up to here with the Republicans. They're just so pathetic. It's just unbelievable. Look, the Republicans have proposed a budget, or at least, and what they should do is propose a budget, a reasonable budget, a fair budget, an honest budget, a right budget, and then let the Democrats shut the government down. Because the point is that the Republicans are all for passing a budget or continuing resolutions or whatever they are, but they just don't want funding in there for stuff that's very negative and a complete waste of money. If not the waste of money, it's actually negative. And I think you never hear Mitch McConnell or any of these people pick one specific thing that the government's spending money on that's completely absurd and say, look, if you'll just take this out of here, I'll vote for it. But I'm not going to vote for it when you're spending the taxpayers' money in this absurd way. Period. End of statement.
Yeah, I think it's different than that in this way. I think that what they're trying to get across is this continuing resolution. I don't know that it's a full-blown budget that they're going to end up offering and debating. I think it's another one of those Band-Aids that both sides have engaged in for years. I can't even tell you over the last 10 years how many legitimate budgets have been passed. It feels like we're just working from one crisis to the next in terms of funding. And I don't think it's a question of just, hey, the Republicans need to offer up a reasonable. I think McCarthy's trying to do that, but there are a handful of the hardcores who are saying, I'm not going to vote for any of this. And the margin is so thin. I'm not going to vote for any of this unless you do these budget cuts. We pull this back. You do that. Go ahead.
Budget? Pull what back? You never hear that. That's the problem.
No, the Republican demands for federal spending cuts is constant.
what you but that's the point. That's the point that Romney and these idiots that are in the Republican Party are just pathetic. You just pick something that anybody that hears about it would say that's a complete waste of money, and then you say, I am not going to vote for this if you don't take that out.
That's what they're doing, though. That's how we got to this impasse. Is they're saying I'm not going to vote for this.
Tell me the specific.
Well, I can't.
That taken out. I know you can't.
Yeah, no. It's not because it doesn't exist, and it's not because they haven't said it. I just can't tell you what each person's individual objections are, whether it's Matt Gaetz or MTG. I can't tell you what their individual objections are.
Because they're not coordinated. They don't get together. They don't come up with.
Well, they're coordinated enough to stymie Kevin McCarthy.
The Democrats do it all the time. They'll say the Republicans want to take away your Medicare. They want to push grandmother off the cliff. They want to take away your Social Security money. Come up with, and I wouldn't come up with a bullcrap thing like that. I'd come up with something very, very real. That if we want you to take certain actions at the border.
This brings up another question, though, Tom. Does this make you question whether or not the Republicans are the right party to lead, to govern?
Yeah, it sure does.
What do you think's going to happen now? I mean, if you're thinking this way, Tom, are you a Republican?
Yeah, I am. But what's happening now, what's happened for quite some time, is people are leaving the Republican Party because really basically just what I'm talking about. I mean, in that election that you ran in and you lost, and Polis beat the Republican candidate,
True.
Yeah. I mean, just like a bunch of stiffs up there. You didn't pull out all the stops. Nobody attacked Polis, for example, on his support of LGBTQ stuff and things of that.
Do you think that would have been the difference maker in our state? Do you think that would have been the difference maker for the election? I don't. Dude is an openly homosexual man. What every voter knew it.
No, that's the point. Every voter didn't know it. And that because if you think about it, Polis never mentioned it. The newspaper didn't mention it. None of the media mentioned it.
He wasn't married. He wasn't married at the time of the first election, but he'd been in a long-term relationship. But he's been married since. He got married before the last election. Why didn't that cost him the election?
Where was the exposés on that?
But what do you mean by expose? What do you mean? Like,
I'll tell you. Polis didn't bring it out. Polis kept it quiet. Now, Polis isn't stupid. He kept it quiet because he didn't think it was going to help him for that information to come out. On the other hand, the Republicans, they kept it quiet too.
Why? Why? If the Republicans think it's a winning issue in Colorado, why not come out and say he is gay? He is gay. Why not do that?
Well, no. It's fine that he can be gay. The question is, A, he's gay. B, he's in this homosexual relationship. Yep. C, he's adopted kids. D, he spent millions of dollars pushing the LGBTQ agenda. All these things that people see going on that they don't like about this being pushed in our schools and transing the kids and whatnot.
I do think there are some states where that might get some traction. Ours just isn't one of them.
In Colorado, look, if it was going to be helpful, then why did he keep it quiet?
I don't know that he kept it quiet, man. I mean, were you surprised? Were you like, oh my God, Jared Polis is gay? What?
I knew that. But I talked to plenty of people that thought, hey, I just thought he was a nice guy. I never knew that. And by the way, the day that he was elected, what was the headline in the newspaper? First openly gay.
Polis wins.
Next day in the paper was the article about
Tom. Before I let you go, and it only dovetails into this conversation because you think that certain people ought to be. Tom, hang on, Tom. Tom. I just want to ask you. if that message had been out there more, dude is gay, dude supports gay things and all that other stuff, do you think he would have lost the governorship because of that?
I think that the Republicans would have gotten more votes. Whether it would
Who
have been,
cares? Would they have
but I don't.
won? It only matters if they win.
No, that's a foolish statement, George.
Is it?
You you want every vote you can get, any way you can get it when you're running for election, because you don't know what vote is going to put you over the top. So whatever you can do to support your cause and to get more people voting for you, that's what you do. And in that election, the Republicans didn't do it. They had some very clear facts. And by the way, when you have a guy with that kind of money that he had and that kind of power, you don't think that there were some dirty pictures or some dirt on that guy somewhere? Nobody dug it up. Everybody kept it quiet. You guys all just sat there.
You guys, hold on. How did I become part of this?
Well, because you were a Republican running with the others.
Oh, wait a minute. Because I was a Republican on the ballot when he was on the ballot, I covered this up, or I wasn't running for governor, dude. I was running for AG. Should I have dug up dirt on Phil? Tried to get pictures on Phil?
Didn't you communicate with the gubernatorial candidate? You guys all get
not outside of running into them at a forum like, hey, Walker, what's up? I mean, that was it.
No. Didn't you have meetings and figure out, look, how can we help each other out?
Nope.
Well, that's because the Republican Party is just pathetic. Because the Republican Party,
hold on. You think that Polis was coordinating with Griswold and Weiser on their first runs? I'm telling you that didn't happen either.
Okay, whatever you say.
Tom, it's not whatever I say. It's whatever the facts are. Thanks for the phone call. Listen, I can tell you why Jared Polis won. Our state has been trending blue for a while, and dude operated outside the Democrat Party. He funded his own door-to-door campaigns to get the vote out. It dwarfed Republican efforts, and a rising tide lifts all boats. That's how he ended up getting the gaps for Phil and Griswold. It's a blue state with a dude that spent out of his own pocket to get things done. This idea that we're going to run out there and announce, hey, everybody, Jared Polis is gay. You think in Colorado that matters? You think that's a winning issue? I'm not even sure it's a winning issue in the Republican Party, let alone in the state of Colorado. That's not the problem. And Tom's point was, well, we're just not fighting hard enough in the House. That's not the problem either. It's the folks fighting hard when they need not fight hard to prevent an outcome that, folks, do you want to see this government shut down? Who wins? Who is the winner? Tell me who wins if this government gets shut down. And who in the world thinks that if Matt Gaetz gets his way, that somehow Kevin McCarthy is just going to cave in and be like, Matt, whatever you want, buddy, whatever you want. What do you want me to say? I'm going to deeply cut. I'm happy to do it. Who thinks that's going to happen? 303-696-1971. Going to cut away for a break. When we come back, it's going to be you, me, Gary, Frank. We have one line open. Give us a call. We'll check the text out too. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. Little Tom Sawyer right here on 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you. I'm going to go right to the phone lines. Gary from Denver, you're on 710. What do you think, Gary?
Oh, hi, George. I'm not sure what your topic is, but you had mentioned the government shutdown, and I'm a federal government employee, and I wanted to let you know that as a taxpayer, I think it's a terrible idea, but as a federal government employee, I'm all for it because we get paid vacation.
We were talking about that, Gary. We're talking about the shutdown and who's for it, who's in favor of it. And I said, for some, I think it's this idea that there's going to be cost savings. Like, well, if we don't have to pay for 2 weeks. But Gary, what I think you're saying is if you don't work for 2 weeks, you still get paid for those 2 weeks when it's all said and done.
Oh, yeah. The one was a couple of years ago. We got like 3 weeks off. It was great. Now, I work for the IRS, so unfortunately, we're exempt
Gary.
even if the government does shut down because of the $80 billion we got. So we'll work one way or the other. But George, can I ask you a kind of a different topic? I've been dying to ask someone a question.
Well, it depends. Is it science related or something like, or hey, does this look infected? I'm not good at that stuff.
No, it's right up your alley. It's about the RICO trial in Georgia. The Fannie.
Yeah, I'll do what I
Fannie
can.
trial.
Sure. Yeah.
There are two of the defendants. I think it's that lady lawyer, the crazy lady lawyer.
You're going to have to be more specific. There's two.
Yeah. The machines were rigged.
Sydney Powell.
Yeah, she and another person asked for a speedy trial, so they're going to go on in October. And, the question has always been, there's 19 defendants, including the president, whether or not the trial will take place before the election. Now, if Sidney Powell and the other fellow, their trial begins in October, will the decision as far as conviction be announced before the others even begin their trial?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so if their trial takes 2 or 3 months, they could be held, convicted and sentenced before Trump's trial begins.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
I think that may have a significant influence on whether or not Trump will be elected.
If they're convicted, and that, there's an easy way if you're Trump's attorneys to distinguish their behavior from his, and it's different juries and different conduct and all that other stuff. But if they're convicted and I'm Jack Smith, I'm either waiting for the phone call from the attorneys or I'm leaning in and saying, do you want to play ball now? If they need them, do you want to cooperate now? Because the next step is sentencing, and everything you do to help right now lowers your sentence. Everything you don't doesn't lower your sentence. So I could see that happening.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. So they could flip after their conviction.
Of course they could.
But before their sentence.
Yeah, think about this too. If they cooperate, that's one thing. If they're acquitted, and again, this is just the insider baseball stuff on how evidence and privileges work and stuff like that. But if they're acquitted, they could then be compelled to be witnesses in the case. They may want to anyway, because then it's, double jeopardy prevents them from being prosecuted again, unless they're worried about. And by the way, did I say Jack Smith? I think it's Fannie Willis in the RICO one. Sorry, at the local. You may be worried about the other sovereign maybe prosecuting you, so you might invoke the fifth. But, the benefit of getting a cooperation is you get them to waive that in exchange for something. That could happen too. You could also foresee an environment where, there's this conspiracy theory that the feds have gotten together with Fannie Willis and Alvin Bragg and all of them. They've all coordinated there. And I'm like, I'm sure they've coordinated calendars, but I can't envision ever like the U.S. attorney, like when Jason Dunn, a friend, was U.S. attorney. I could never envision Jason picking up the phone and saying, let's get together and decide. It doesn't work like that, right? Like usually there's a case. They want a piece of it. We want a piece of it. And we make a decision about who's going to prosecute what. And then down the road, maybe somebody calls the other and says, hey, this guy wants to cooperate, but he doesn't want to do it unless he knows he's not going to be exposed on the federal or the state. You might have those conversations. So that could happen here. I don't know. It's interesting, Gary. I want these cases, every single one of them, to be resolved before a single ballot lands in a single mailbox. That's fair. right? Like
Yeah.
whether it's acquittal or conviction, voters got to know.
Yeah, so it's just I appreciate the explanation. I just didn't know how it all fit together because it's a RICO trial, and they're all connected, but they could be individually convicted of pieces of it without maybe the entire
That's
RICO
right.
being.
That's right. And you could get inconsistent verdicts simply because of the different juries. You could have Sidney Powell and the other dude, I can't remember his name now, get convicted. And then in a separate trial of a handful of other people with different, they might get acquitted or found guilty of lesser charges. There isn't any true factual inconsistency with that or legal inconsistency. It's just the kind of thing that happens. Could one of those outcomes dictate a sentence or impact a sentence on another case? I guess if I'm a judge, I'd be interested, but it wouldn't force my hand. I wouldn't be bound to say, oh, you get probation now because these other guys got acquitted. I wouldn't feel that way.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it would be the same jury for all of the defendants, but there'll be individual juries.
Individual trials are individual juries. Yep.
All right. Thanks for the explanation.
Sure, man. Hey, thanks. Good luck, and hope you don't have a vacation.
Me too.
See you, Gary. 303-696-1971. We've got more callers on the line. Gary's line is open. Give us a call. Frank from Evergreen, you're on 710. What do you think, Frank?
Hey, good morning. Full disclosure, I dumped the Democrats the Communist Party of America after Carter.
Yep.
I dumped the Republicans after feckless Bush lied about nukes or weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
And then I dumped you
dumped the unaffiliateds after.
Yeah, I've been free ever since. But this whole budget thing is it's basically the lying, cheating, stealing, baby killing Communist Party of America lying to us more, because just like Gary mentioned, he's an IRS employee, and guess what? The IRS is not going to shut down. They're still out there,
collecting
stealing
taxes
money from us.
Yeah, right. Well, stealing is a tough word, buddy, because it's the law. It's the law.
It's stealing. Sorry.
Stealing would have to mean it's without your consent, and you did consent.
Where is the IRS in the Constitution, George? It doesn't exist. Okay.
Well, hang on. There's an actual amendment to the Constitution that says that income tax is constitutional. So that's where the IRS comes from.
Well, you're smarter than me on that.
It's not smarter. I'm answering your question.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Anyway, but it's back. This whole thing is because remember when Obama shut down the government, and his shutdown was basically shutting down the national parks in D.C. Give me a friggin' break, dude. And we haven't had a budget since Obama, since the beginning of Obama. We have continuing resolutions, and what the Republicans are trying to do, the feckless Republicans, because they can't accomplish anything, is they're trying to get back to individual. Like I think there's 13 funding bills that fund the government individually, and they're trying to get to that point where we get back to a management of individual departments. And I think one of the callers earlier.
What does that mean? You lost me there, man. What do you mean?
Well, there's 13. Okay, take what I say with a grain of salt, because the whole thing is kind of muddled to me. I'm sure there's callers that know more about than I do, but there used to be, back in the olden times when we actually tried to manage the budget and all that, as opposed to these continuing resolutions or these what they call omnibus bills.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be where they would each major department would have a budget, and each of those budgets was voted on individually. Now they have just this massive omnibus thing, which Republicans are trying to get rid of.
Hold on, but the omnibus is the compilation of all those individual budgets.
Yeah,
that's
and
why it's
you
called
vote
an
up or
omnibus.
down on the omnibus, and that's the end of it. So you don't vote individual budgets. So anyway, but it's back to one thing, George.
Yep.
It's back to zombies who vote for these lying, cheating, stealing Communist Party of America.
Hold on. How does this shutdown come back to the Dems?
Because they're lying, cheating, stealing Communist Party of America.
Who don't control the House.
They don't control it today. The Republicans got about like 5 voters.
Right. But they're the ones that are about to screw themselves.
And I would have to agree with that. That's maybe a bridge too far, that these 5 guys or I think they're guys and gals. I think
I don't know
Bobert
how you
might be
count
one of
them.
them.
I don't know how you count
I
them.
think
Yeah.
Bobert might be one of them.
Those. Yeah, the ones that are holding out. Okay.
Yeah. And I love Bobert, by the way. I give her money all the time. But somebody's got to stand up. The question is, there's a time, you're a military guy, you know this. There's a time to advance, there's a time to retreat, and there's a time to hold your ground. And I think right now we're at a point where the Republicans need to hold their ground as far as advancing going.
Which Republicans?
The Republican in general need to hold their ground, and as opposed to shutting down the government, because we know that the Democrats are lying, cheating, stealing, Communist Party of America.
But Frank, you're saying do not shut down the government.
Republicans.
Yeah, of course they are. Of course they are. That's what the media is going to do. You're saying do not shut down the government.
I would say that, yeah, because first of all, it doesn't get shut down because guys like Gary, who just called, said, yeah, it's party time, man. This is the problem. You got these zombies who vote for Democrats, and they're in power. They have the power. They got the Senate, and they got the executive branch. And, so at some point, the worm's got to turn. And, if this is the way the zombie Democrats
You're
win.
losing me on that point. If you're talking about, hey, the mainstream media is left of center and they're going to come to the Democrats' rescue when the Republicans get blamed for all the bad things that happened from the shutdown, you have me. But then you say it's the elected Democrats, what is it they're doing in this situation to make this a problem?
It's I can't speak to this situation, but it's just their normal game plan, their normal playbook. We know they're gonna run the ball up the middle every play. It's just, this is the way they've been working for 40 years. This, the Clinton came in, and that he's the one that coined the phrase about looking at the polls and doing what the polls tell them, and it's been that way ever since. And we hear we get all this Mickey Mouse about Trump being a woman hater. And all. Clinton raped 3 women. This is not even in question. He raped 3 women.
We're getting a little far afield of it here on this.
I'm just trying to give you a feel for why people are frustrated with both the feckless Republicans and the Communist Party of America, because they both play the same game back and forth.
But it sounds like you're in agreement with Kevin McCarthy and almost every other Republican in the House as to what should happen. Your issue is with the Matt Gaetzes and presumably, I don't know if Lauren's part of this or not, or the MTGs, the other hardcores that make up this handful of people that are keeping this from happening. You think they're wrong.
Like I said, I'll try to explain it the way in better terms. Like I said, you're a military guy. There's a time to advance, there's a time to hold your ground, and there's time to retreat. Right now, the Republicans need to hold their ground and get to the next election. And then the solution is, George, believe it or not, is when Trump is reelected, he turns all the old people into Soylent Green, and then the problem is solved.
Wait a minute, who gets turned into Soylent Green?
Just anybody older than Trump.
Are there anybody older other than Biden? Yeah. Is that it? He's just going to turn Biden into Soylent Green. McCarthy's younger than Trump by a bunch.
Yep. So anyway, the problem is just, it's so multifaceted that it can't be distilled down to shut down the government or don't shut down the government. I think at this point, my answer is, don't do it, because you're going to get blamed.
Frank, you are singing my song, buddy. And thank you for the phone call, man. I went a little bit long with you as I usually do, but have to break away for something right here. We're going to come back. Frank's line is open, 303-696-1971. We've got text too. I want to get through those before we end the hour too. A bunch. I don't know if I can get through all of them, but I'll do what I can. Hey, before I cut away, can I tell you about Dan Kaplis? Dan is a wizard. I've said this yesterday and I mean it too today. I wish that guy was not so busy that he couldn't watch what's going on in that McLean case, because he is a seasoned veteran, successful trial attorney. I would love to hear his take on what's going on in there, just in terms of, and maybe I've got it wrong, just in terms of witness placement, like what order do you call them and the presentation of this evidence and this argument. I'd love to pick his brain on that just to see what he thinks about it all, because that kind of, it would almost be like having a much thinner John Madden sitting in and talking about the NFL stuff. And the only reason he's able to do that is because he spent decades fighting the good fight and being the little guy fighting against the big guy. That means representing people like you, victims of other people's conduct, whether it's negligence or recklessness or intentional conduct. And he takes up their cause. He takes their righteous case and goes to court and puts on the best damn case he can to convince a jury of your peers that you deserve justice. And guy wins. He's just a winner. He and Bob are out there ringing the bell for clients all the time. You're not going to see him on buses and on trains but you're not going to see him there, but you'll hear about him from the people that know him, like me. I worked for the guy 16, 17 years ago. I can attest to it. So if you want the benefit of that kind of expertise, that kind of courtroom knowledge, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551 is Dan's number. You can also check him out at dancapluslaw.com. Caplis is CAPLIS, dancapluslaw.com. When we come back, a dozen plus texts that have just popped in here on this topic. We'll get to those. Then we'll change it up at the top of the hour. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Some texts. Soylent Green, it's us. That is true. Thank you, Corey. Soylent Green. I wish I had that Charlton Heston clip queued up. Soylent Green is people. Hopefully I didn't spoil that for you if you haven't watched that 50-plus-year-old movie. Another one here. Current caller is correct. IRS is unconstitutional. What? Which is precisely why Communist Wilson and his Communist House and Communist Senate created the unconstitutional income tax amendment. You know, when you amend the Constitution, spoiler alert, by definition, it's not unconstitutional. You can't make the Constitution unconstitutional. Get that? That illegal amendment. It can't be an illegal amendment created tax slaves to replace the real slaves that Lincoln took away. George, if the House votes for a budget bill and it passes with the necessary votes, it then goes to the Senate. If the Senate does not approve the bill, then it is the Senate that shuts the government down. Please be honest. Listen, this isn't a question of dishonesty. It can't get to the Senate, dude. We can't even get a continuing resolution on the Defense Department, let alone a continuing resolution on the government, let alone a budget. This isn't about being dishonest. Republicans suck, man, in the House. They cannot get it done. More texts. I can't get to all of them. Your calls, 303-696-1971. We'll talk about another budget issue called Ukraine. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Final hour of the show that makes the final show of this week. Not the last week in September, that's next week, but certainly this week is in the rearview mirror. Next time that we're on the air with you, it will be fall, or if you're a Cherry Creeker, autumn next Monday. Got some texts here. I'm not sure I want to continue on. Read that text. Something. Eric, listen, I love you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for dropping the capitalization of every single word. But man, you just can't order me to do stuff. I just on only a couple people can do that. One of them is Billy. The other one is not here in the building at the moment. Nonetheless, this is breaking news. And Eric, I'll give you some credit for this. You hit us with this as it was breaking everywhere else. And that is that a guy named Senator Bob Menendez, Democrat out of a place called Jersey, he's been indicted by Billy just, of course, swoops in and finds all the good sound to set the stage for this next conversation. Go ahead, buddy.
Back with that breaking news we were telling you about, a federal grand jury in Lower Manhattan indicting New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez on corruption charges. That includes his wife as well. The indictment, including his wife for having a corrupt relationship with 3 New Jersey businessmen.
Pretty serious allegations. Let's bring in ABC's Aaron Katursky now. He's been reviewing these indictment documents. And so, Aaron, from my understanding, this involved gold bars, allegedly, sensitive government information. What have you been able to learn so far?
There's a stunning breadth of alleged conduct here that federal prosecutors in New York have charged Bob Menendez with the powerful chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, Mike. And effectively, he had, according to prosecutors, this corrupt relationship with 3 different New Jersey businessmen and took steps under the power of his office as a United States Senator in exchange for bribes that took the form of gold bars, a no-show job, a Mercedes. There's even a picture in the indictment of a Senate jacket with Menendez's name on it that's stuffed with cash. Almost comical, some of the conduct that's alleged here, but it is quite serious, and Menendez and the other defendants are expected to appear here in federal court next week.
Now, Aaron, this is not the first time that we've been here before, right? In 2015, that case for Menendez ended with a mistrial after that jury failed to reach a verdict on all the counts. Where does this stack up to that 2015 case?
You know, it's very similar conduct, but of course wholly separate. They're involved doing favors for a friend, an eye doctor in Florida, who was convicted and then later had a sentence commuted by then President Trump. In this particular case, Menendez is alleged to have taken a series of actions on behalf of 3 different businessmen. In one instance, it's alleged Menendez provided sensitive United States government information to Egypt to help his friend, the businessman Wael Hanna, who's another defendant, so that he could keep his exclusive contract with Egypt to provide halal meat to that country of some 90 million Muslims. So very lucrative for that New Jersey businessman. It's also alleged that Menendez tried to intervene in a criminal investigation by the New Jersey Attorney General on behalf of another businessman friend. And it's said that he recommended to President Biden a candidate to be the top federal prosecutor in New Jersey that Menendez thought he could control as it related to an investigation that office was undertaking into a third businessman who ended up pleading guilty. So there are a series of steps that Menendez allegedly took, and prosecutors say in return he was given some $500,000 in cash and all these other favors.
Dang. Woo! That sounds horrible. That sounds like there's going to be an opening for U.S. Senator in New Jersey. Now, imagine it's just like here in the state of Colorado. And by the way, he's not going to go down without a fight. There's attorneys are going to get rich off of this case. Probably paid with gold bars or something like that. But OMG, this feels like it could have political ramifications. I mean, listen, the New Jersey governor, I'm sure is a Dem, but they're going to be able to appoint into any opening. But this has the ability to upend the apple cart in a Senate that is a, 51-49 endeavor right now. That's kind of a big deal. Menendez is up for re-election in 2024. The timing of this could be designed to force him to announce he's not running for re-election. Well, I don't know. I guess my question is this political? Do you trust it? Do you believe this? I mean, is this the corrupt Biden DOJ again engaging in some sort of corrupt behavior with this time a Democrat senator? I mean, some of this is tongue in cheek, but folks, the DOJ that has gone after Donald Trump, both at Mar-a-Lago and up in Washington, D.C., and I've told you my thoughts on each of those cases, is now going after a sitting Democrat United States senator at a time when that guy might be up for re-election. And oh, by the way, the Senate is split 51-49. The Senate, the control of it, is on the ballot a year from November. Do you believe it? You think the fix is in on this? Now, remember, it's just an indictment. It's just an indictment, which means it's just accusations by a grand jury. Do you believe it? The reason I ask is my guess is a bunch of you are wringing your hands with joy like, yeah, they're finally going to get him. That guy's corrupt. We'll trust the DOJ when they go after them, but we don't trust them when they come after one of ours. Just sit back and honestly reflect on how you feel about this story. Are you like, oh, I'm super skeptical of the DOJ. I'll bet you Menendez did nothing and this was an attempt to just get him. If you think like that and you're the guy that thinks that the fix is in on Trump, okay, at least you're consistent. But how do you swallow this story whole cloth and say, yeah, corrupt, get him, prison, maybe we take back a Senate seat, and then turn around and look at the same DOJ, the same president in charge of the attorney general who's in charge of the DOJ, who filed the charges against Trump, and go, well, that's different. That's different. Is it just because Trump may be his political opponent? Listen, I think that's unseemly and horrible. I don't know how you get around that. But is that it? Do we trust the DOJ in this matter with Menendez? We don't trust it with Trump. I don't know. I mean, I look at this indictment and I think this guy's going to prison. I mean, there's just, in my mind, this guy's gone. Just off of the indictment, yes, is he presumed innocent? Sure he is. Of course he is. That's the only way the system can work. But in my mind, I'm scrambling to think of all of the innocuous explanations for these allegations, unless they're just made up, unless there's no factual basis for any of them. And I find that very hard to believe. What are the innocent explanations for it? I mean, the gold bars and stuff, I guess he could have bought them, maybe, but they got to be disclosed, folks, if they're given to him. My guess is they got the people that done gave it to him. My guess is they got a couple other people. Did you hear in that story that Billy played? One of the dudes is like his dentist or somebody. I don't know who he was. He got convicted and Trump like commuted the dude's sentence. Huh? My guess is that guy's a cooperator too. Let's look. Okay. Billy's got that part. Fire that sucker up.
The first time that we've been here before, right? In 2015, that case for Menendez ended with a mistrial after that jury failed to reach a verdict on all the counts. Where does this stack up to that 2015 case?
It's very similar conduct, but of course, wholly separate. They're involved doing favors for a friend, an eye doctor in Florida, who was convicted and then later had a sentence commuted by then President Trump. In this particular case, Menendez is alleged to have taken a series of actions on behalf of 3 different businessmen. In one instance, it's alleged Menendez provided sensitive United States government information to Egypt to help his friend, the businessman Wael Hanna, who's another defendant, so that he could keep his exclusive contract with Egypt to provide halal meat to that country of some 90 million Muslims. So
that is crazy. That's craziness. Got people texting in here saying, here's one. Well, wait a minute. George Menendez is a Democrat. Isn't he being accused of the same stuff that the Bidens are being accused of, the same kind of allegations? He's a Democrat. Yeah. Similar stuff. Corrupt behavior based on receiving something of benefit in exchange for using your office to benefit that other person. That is what the Bidens are being accused of. That is what Hunter and his dad, the president, are being accused of. You're right. Not formally yet, not indicted, certainly worth the investigation. But in this case, did you hear that other part of the story, by the way? In 2015, also prosecuted for this hung jury. Honest to God, as you sit there right now, when you heard back in 2015 hung jury for Bob Menendez, did you think dude was guilty and he beat the system? Or do you think I'm going to still presume him innocent? He did nothing wrong. It's an important question because what happens if the DJT gets a hung jury? What happens if the jury convicts? Are you going to believe the jury? Or have you already made up your mind? I mean, the reason this story is interesting to me is not just because it's a U.S. senator with this, he's got $480,000 in gold and money tucked away in his house. And who doesn't? I mean, when you're a U.S. senator, obviously you go there to get rich, right? So I'm sort of tongue in cheek, but isn't it weird how they all end up rich? What's going on? I mean, what's going on here? Do you believe it? How do you explain it? Let me put it that way. If you're a person that thinks that the DOJ is corrupt and there's a 2-tier justice system, which tier is Menendez on? Is he on the Republican tier where he gets... No, Dem. I mean, how do you think about this case? I'm a guy who sits there and looks at this and thinks, yes, if I'm going to be in the courtroom and I'm going to be a juror, of course I'd presume him innocent until he's proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But as a dude who sits there and gets the same news you get, I'd probably dive a little bit deeper and try to read the indictment. Do I think this guy's good for it? I do. So it cannot be a shock to you that when the same kind of an indictment rolls out of a Miami federal courtroom or one out of DC, that my instinct is to read it and think, okay, there's something here. Many of you texted in and called in to say, we don't know what the facts are. These are just allegations. This is political prosecution. You can't trust any. Do you feel the same way about this case? Feel the same way about Menendez and his wife, Nadine? By the way, they've only been married for like 3 years. His earlier wife must have passed away or gotten divorced or something, because they've only been married since the vid. She looks like she's a little younger than Bob. But Bob and Nadine are now in the crosshairs right there. How do you view this versus the prosecutions against Donald Trump? And listen, if you're one of the ones that said, hey, we got to burn down the whole federal, criminal justice system, the DOJ is bad, FBI is bad, guess who put this case together against Bob Menendez? The DOJ and the FBI. What? So are they all corrupt? I mean, how do you rationalize these two things? 303-696-1971. I don't know the answer. I mean, here's some text. Senator Menendez is typical. They're all corrupt or have skeletons in the closet, therefore bribable. He likely pissed off the wrong swamp boss. Menendez will be replaced by a communist, Democrat, or rhino. Well, listen, Texter, some of what you said, I get it, man. Maybe they are all corrupt. I don't know. But who's going to replace him with a Democrat or a rhino? Short of him resigning, and if you're Bob Menendez, you do not resign. You do not resign. You got an election coming up in 2024. Your debate is, do I run for re-election or not? This guy is a career swamper, right? But let's say he decides not to run. Well, the people that are going to replace him are called the voters of New Jersey. So whether they vote for a, quote, communist, Democrat, or rhino is on them. He ain't going to be replaced by some powers that be. I don't see that short of him resigning. Here's another one. Can we please call this Meatgate? Yes, we can. Meatgate. Our friend Eric, much love back at you, my brother. Here's another one. Be nice to Eric. Dude is a Colorado hero. He's going to take over the Tub Show. I said, no chance. And he said, Eric makes better burritos than you. That may be true. I don't claim to have any special burrito making skills. I have burrito eating skills, mad skills, but not good burrito making ones. And then Alexa, you better hide those gold bars in your house. Stat. Yeah, listen, I want someone to try to bribe me. I want to be in the position to at least be able to say no, or maybe yes. I don't know. I don't think I would say yes, but it'd sure be neat to be confronted with gold bars. And is it bad if you only take one of the three, right? Like if you turn down the majority of the bribe, do you still have a foot in ethics and goodness? Yeah, is it a reasonable thing to do? Is a small bribe just as bad as a big one? And if the answer is yes, then you should take it all, right? Like either take none of it or take all of it. And maybe that's the Bob Menendez debate that he had with Nadine earlier was, honey, this is stupid. If we're taking one gold bar, let's take all of them because it all spends the same when the grand jury indicts. And it looks like they're gonna do that. 303-696-1971. Listen, let's do this. Let me do a live read cutaway. Joan is on the line. Other phone call coming in. That means we have one line left for you at 303-696-1971. Give us a call. Let me tell you about Gay Ribble with Empower Home team at Keller Williams. I think Gay's coming into the studio next week. Billy, did you say Gay's coming into the studio next week? Gay, so that's fantastic. One, I want to talk to Gay about her commitment to growing families and building families. She does that not as a realtor. She does that as someone who's the product of adoption, and she is a big proponent of adoption. Adoption is in my immediate family. I am a big proponent of adoption too, but she walks the walk as well as talk the talk. She's been doing it for decades. And the other way she helps build families is to put them in the homes that will accommodate their situation for that moment and moving forward. They do it by helping you get top dollar for your current house and then getting you into that dream house, even though the scarcity is there and it's so hyper competitive. Gay Ribble can make it happen. She and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams. They sell faster than other realtors, for more money than other realtors. They make you the guarantees that other realtors won't about the timing and price of your house and all that stuff. All you have to do to get the advantage of it is go to gayhasthebuyers.com, 14,600 plus of them. Gay, G-A-Y-E, hasthebuyers.com. You can also give her a call at 833-301-SOLD. That's what I do, 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD. Give her and the team a call and keep that family moving forward. Hey, listen, we're going to cut away for a break. Come back. We're going to get Joan and the others, the texts. George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Some text before Joan. We got another caller, Rick. You call into 303-696-1971. How dare you let facts obstruct a good narrative? And Menendez is being indicted to make it clear Trump is a pariah and anyone associated with him is going down. Let Trump commuted the sentence. I think I know what you're saying. You can call in though and clarify. The difference is all of the attempts to convict Trump based on made up what the left claimed to be facts against him. Then it took constant looking for anything they could get on him. Menendez, they have facts. Yes, both are innocent until proven guilty, but you can't overlook the history of the left's constant attacks on Trump. I agree, no one is above the law, but suspicions are high on everything brought against Trump. There's something to that, right? Like they've been gunning for him in a bunch of different venues. But Menendez, they went after Menendez in 2015, and the dude got walked based on off of a hung jury, not acquitted. That's different. But couldn't he make the same claim? Man, you guys have been coming after me for years. You have to be suspicious of all their allegations against me. I don't know. 303-696-1971. Joan from Lakewood. How are you, Joan?
Hi, George. How are you doing?
Living the dream. How's Jeff go?
I went to a meeting last night of a House district, and I think that we're really pretty activated and energized.
Good.
So I have hope. So I think that the timing of this is not about Mendez's election, but
okay.
it's actually about what happened this week with Merrick Garland.
How so? Tell me.
Merrick Garland got his lunch served to him by the House investigation and Jim Jordan. And have you seen some of the clips of Merrick Garland sitting there saying, I don't know, I have no idea.
All the time. Repeated I don't knows. Like who prepped him for the meeting?
I don't know, but they really did a bad job of it because it made him look really stupid. So now we have to change the narrative. And how do we change the narrative? Friday, we put out this case that they've been dragging on and having with all sorts of salacious details. I mean, seriously, gold bars? I mean, have you ever tried to sell a gold coin?
It's funny you ask. Yes, and to buy one, but it was back during my numismatist days. When I was a kid, in addition to the dinosaurs and the space travel and all other stuff, I was one of those dorky kids that really got into coins. And so I spent time at a coin place, in particular at the old Cinderella City, if you remember that, Joan, from back there in Inglewood. And so I do have some experience trying to buy and sell a gold coin, but not gold bars.
Well, I would imagine gold bars would be like 17 times more difficult, don't you think?
I do, but my guess is he's holding on to them because it's something for the future. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't seem like it's something that he needed to be liquid right then and there. Like, why do you hoard gold bars? Maybe he's expecting the zombie apocalypse, or maybe he's going to be a prepper. I don't know.
Well, maybe he's going to skip out and go to Egypt where gold bars are what you use. I don't know.
Do you believe it? Do you believe that Menendez is good for this?
Not, well, maybe, but I don't know. I think they had him on a meat hook for a while, and they had him in storage, and they brought him out now because all of the clips on Garland and stuff need to go away. We gotta do something with the news cycle. So
yeah, but listen, Joan, some of the timing of this is, wouldn't you like to know when the grand jury was impaneled, how many sessions they had, and when the indictment came down? I mean, if this indictment came down 6 months ago and they've somehow been hanging on to it and then all of a sudden dropped it after the Merrick Garland thing, then what you say makes me go, oh, maybe. But what if the indictment came down yesterday or the day before? Then I don't know if you can tie it to the timing of the Garland fiasco.
Well, I don't know what to say other than a coat full of money.
I know. Isn't that awesome? Jeez.
If you sit here and you start to make comparisons to some of the other things that we've been seeing in news cycles where, the infrared cameras on Lauren Boebert. I mean, seriously, everybody's seeing it going, how did that happen?
I still think one of the most insightful comments, and I believe they have them going all the time. I don't believe it was just about Lauren, but I do think one of the most insightful comments was, how is it we know about Boebert groping her buddy and we don't know who left the Coke in the White House? I mean, that's a great question. You know what I mean? Like,
I sent that into you. I sent that in. You know, and it's the same thing with this. And the part that gets just truly interesting is there's the meat issue, right? Because we all know we have to stop eating meat.
you think that's what this is about? The halal
No,
meat
but
thing? Oh.
that they add these kinds of little things. So now the vegans can all say, oh, it's terrible. It's awful. He was trying to do this for the meat and the Muslims. It's got too much. It's too much. It's just, it's a novel. It's a James Bond movie. It's what the
Wait a
writers
minute. What would Menendez be? Gold meter. Boo, boo, boo. Is that the turning halal meat into gold?
it's the Midas Mendez.
Midas Menendez is a good one. Joan, that's a great one. Have a great weekend, and thank you for the call. Joan's line is open at 303-696-1971. Now, listen, Eric Manning had a wonderful suggestion. When are you going to book CU's Coach Prime on your show? Billy, I think that's a challenge. I think Eric Manning just threw down the gauntlet for you, my friend, because I would love to get Coach Prime on the show. And I told Eric that. I said, I'd love to get him on the show. Tell him. And Eric says he just might. Now, I don't know what access Eric has to Coach Prime, but buddy, if you can get him on the air, here's my pledge to you, Eric. You get him to come into this studio and do this show. I will put you in the studio to help question him as well with me and eat your burritos. He'll even pay for them. I don't 303-696-1970 was the number. Listen, this Menendez thing is so interesting to me. And I wonder how many of you are in that quandary right now. Like, well, wait a minute. Can I trust the DOJ? Can I trust Merrick Garland's DOJ? They just indicted a Democrat at a time when they have a 51-49 thing. I want to believe them, but at the same time, how can they be on this and then that? And I'm not saying that the one can't be corrupt and the other not. I'm not saying that. It's just interesting to me because the gut reaction is going to be one of two things. One is they got this dude. That was my gut reaction with the indictment out of Mar-a-Lago. Even before the indictment came down, all that nonsense with the hoarding the records, the government records and all that. I'm like, they're going to come get this guy. They have to. They cannot just sit back and go, well, whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it. This dude right here seems like he's been emboldened. Menendez, emboldened by his hung jury in 2015. Really, really impressive. I do think the timing thing is an interesting point that Joan brings up, but not for the reason Joan brings it up. I wonder if they don't recognize him to be vulnerable and weak. And the idea here is let's throw this indictment punch at him. We can always get him. He's good for the crime, but let's roll it out now to try to help clear the field for some sort of contested fight for the 2024 election. And maybe this guy ends up saying, hey, I'm not going to run for re-election. I don't know. I just don't know New Jersey politics enough. But this indictment covers from 2018 through 2022. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes in exchange for using his power and influence as a senator. Some of you, like me, may be thinking, how many senators can that not be said of? We just haven't caught them yet. Cash, gold, payments towards a home mortgage, compensation for a low or no-show job. I want that. I don't think that's corruption. For me, in many ways, the radio is the low show job. A luxury vehicle. I'd like a luxury vehicle. Billy does the trivia. I think at the end of the day, we're going to find out that Billy's trivia job is a low show job as well. And he's secretly getting funneled hundreds of thousands of dollars to advance the cause of the snake industry. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, that's what's going on. Billy is spreading snake love on behalf of some snake cartel. And they're filling his pockets with these pretend trivia things. That's my best guess.
You need to stop, Brett. You got to stop this because you're ruining my gig. I mean, you realize the snake people aren't going to pay me if you keep doing this.
That's when you come on and you do that nervous laughter, like that's just so crazy. I don't know where you would. That can't be true.
I'm just there and say, sir, that's not possible.
Yeah, it's true. I have walked in on the studio and heard. Is it Parseltongue? Is that what it is?
Parseltongue.
Parseltongue. Yeah, I heard Billy talking into his phone in what I believe to be Parseltongue.
Yes.
And I don't know if he's talking to Voldemort or if he's talking to the head of the snake cartel or if they're the same person.
Yes, they could be.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know.
And just for our 6 o'clock listeners, there was something else that ran through my mind at that point that I would have said in 6 o'clock.
Uh-oh.
I'm not saying
we're not
in the morning.
This is the opposite. This is unsafe harbor right here that we're in. One other thing that has to do with the goings on in Congress. We've talked about the budget. We've talked about this Menendez thing, which just sort of sprung up. But, Vladimir Zelensky, who is the dude that is running the show for Ukraine, he's the Ukrainian president. He came to Washington hat in hand and begged for another, I think it was $24 billion in military and other aid, humanitarian aid for Ukraine. This is one of the quotes. I guess we could put up the sound. Billy, I'm looking off this MSN.com thing, but the gist of it is he said, I am in Washington to strengthen Ukraine's position to defend our children, our families, our homes, freedom and democracy in the world. Applause line, lots of applause. And in this particular case, the question would be, as we're facing a government shutdown, do you give the $24 billion? I mean, you and I have had this conversation, you being the listeners out there, you and I have had this conversation for many months now, and that is, what do you do? Do you grant him any more money? Do you grant him some of the money? Do you grant him none of the money? Now, the guy that comes up after me is a dude named Charlie Kirk. He's going to be on here at 10, from 10 to 11, and then we go Prager and Gorka, and then live and local at 3 with Deb, 3 to 4, and then KNUS goes super live and local with Stefan Tubes for his one of his last shows in his last 3 years before retirement. This will be one of his last shows. But Kirk is a big no to Ukraine guy. If you've ever listened to Charlie, he is adamantly opposed to Vladimir Zelensky. He is super skeptical of him. He thinks he's corrupt. He thinks that the Ukrainian army is filled with Nazis, swastika tattoo wearing Nazis. They can't be trusted. And at the end of the day, part of his analysis, and I'm not doing it justice, is, can the Russians be that much worse? I mean, can we just, not that much worse? Do we let Ukraine just twist on its own? Something else you may not be aware, by the way, Poland came out, and this is political. Poland is going to go through an election here. Poland has made the decision, and this is a big deal, to stop providing military arms and stuff to the Ukrainians. Now, if you remember, Poland has been a pretty necessary, integral ally in all of this in terms of even refugees, let alone the military stuff. And we were talking about, I think, trying to put planes into Ukraine via Poland and all this. Well, Poland has now said, we're done. We're not providing anymore. They're not taking sides against Ukraine. They're not saying, hey, we're all for Russia these days. But because of their own internal politics, is my conclusion, they've made the decision to take that issue off the table because it was becoming a wedge issue with voters. What does that tell you? I mean, you lose Poland. Is that the crack in the is that the fissure, by the way, in that wall? Are we going to start to see other of the allies? That's what Putin is counting on. Putin is counting on fatigue, Western fatigue, because the one thing the East has always had, and don't make any mistakes, man, Russia is the East. The East has always had is a true understanding of time, not the Kamala Harris, the importance of the passage of time. And the importance of the passage of time and the importance of the passage of time. Not that. They know the long-term game is the only game. The short-term stuff, man, they'll weather that forever. China going to get Taiwan because they're just going to wait us out and wear us down. They're just going to do it. They're going to keep lightly pushing. They'll do some flashes. They'll do some flexing. But at the end of the day, they're going to get it. I mean, that's what they believe. Same thing Russia feels about Ukraine. They're going to get it. We don't have the guts to keep moving forward. They see the same internal struggles in Congress that you and I see. The stuff that we talk about on the radio, they see that too. And so what they also hear is they hear the Matt Gaetzes and the Charlie Kirks and the others all come out and make this binary choice. Like, we shouldn't be funding Ukraine while our border is porous. Like somehow if we stopped funding Ukraine, the Biden administration is going to take $24 billion and send it to the border. That's never going to happen. Never. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. But what should we do, man? I mean, are you thinking, let's just let Ukraine fight that? Let's just let Europe, whether they're willing to or not, don't care. That's on them. Let's just let Ukraine go because this guy is here to say, I need $24 billion more dollars. That is a ton of money. In terms of the national debt, it's not because that's 33 trillion, but 24 billion bucks to you and me, that's a lot of money. Alexa types in, all the money we are giving, all caps, to Ukraine is borrowed, which we have interest on. That part is true. You're absolutely right about that. We're going to end up paying for that long after Ukraine consumes it. In my mind, I'm trying to picture what the world looks like if Ukraine falls to Russia. I don't know. I mean, there's people out there that are like, that's all we did it to. I heard this the other day. We did it to ourselves. We had a treaty where we promised that Ukraine would never be a part of NATO. And then this happened, and we basically demanded that Russia take steps because we violated. Give me a break. If you really believe Russia is going to stop at Ukraine, I don't know. There's a story out there. I've got it right here. Billy printed this bad boy off for me. A Russian general recently promoted. I'm reading from this. Where did we get this? What website was this? This is an Australian news source. A Russian general recently promoted by Putin has raised eyebrows across Europe with a television appearance explaining Moscow's ambitions after the Ukraine war. Get this. In a recent interview with state-run program Russia One, Lieutenant General Andrei Mordvichev said he believed the invasion of Ukraine was, quote, just the beginning of further conflicts with Europe. Now, I get it, right? It's just one lieutenant general, just one recently promoted general, but that's what this guy's saying. This is the general.
Надолго. Я думаю, что достаточно еще времени придется потратить. Говорить о определенных сроках. Нет, бессмысленно.
You heard it right there.
Да. Что там вообще определяться? Если мы
He said right there.
О Восточной Европе, которую нам придется, конечно, будет больше.
Yeah, well, that part wasn't that funny.
То есть Украина только промежуточная.
Yeah, Ukraine is, Billy is interpreting, as many of you know, Billy, a Russian plant. He's part of a sleeper cell, a snake sleeper cell. But that guy's saying basically Ukraine is just the first step. Now, even if he hadn't said that, that's what I believe. That's what I believe. Is $24 billion too much? Should it be zero? Should it be less? Folks, I got to tell you, what's going on in Ukraine that the Russians are perpetrating on the Ukrainian people, how do we not stand up to them and feel good about ourselves? And I'm not saying we got to go run out and put every fire across the world, because the example I use, we didn't do it in Rwanda. We don't do it in Congo. We don't do it in Uganda, any of the other places where there might be vestiges of some sort of an administration is too strong of a word, of a leadership that seeks genocide. We don't do any of that stuff. This is different. This is different because if Ukraine goes, we have a ton of NATO allies, Article 5 style allies that border Ukraine. Then what do we do? And if you're them and you watch us withdraw from Ukraine, what's your conclusion about the U.S.? Oh, those are the allies I want. Or is it fair weather friends? Do they start to cozy up to Putin because they're like, if you don't see me as a threat, maybe you won't invade me. I mean, the other part that none of these other foreign policy experts, I'm using air quotes here, in Congress that want to disarm Ukraine and stop funding them, well, like Charlie to some extent, is it's just ignorant of history. Putin believes in spheres of influence across the globe, and he believes that we have exceeded ours. They want to keep America over here in this part of the hemisphere and not have influence where he believes Russia should have influence. And his view of a sphere of influence is for Russia to dominate Europe. Doesn't mean control it like it's a republic, but to dominate Europe. That's their sphere of influence, and we're meddling. They also think China has their sphere of influence over there. That's just the Putin view of the planet Earth. And that's why he's a mischief maker every place he thinks we've exceeded what he believes to be our sphere of influence, like Syria. That's just how Putin works. That isn't going to change if Ukraine falls. Jay, I promise I'll get to you. I want to cut away for a quick break, and then we'll come back and get Jay, the other callers, the other text. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here. Final segment at 710 KNUS. I do what I always do, and that is to honor the callers. We'll start with Jay. Jay, you're on 710. What do you think?
I think as a civilized nation, we should respect the basic human rights of Ukraine and not allow them to be overrun by a dominant power. Hey, we protected South Korea from the north during the Korean War.
Well, we did.
We protected Kuwait from their invasion from Iraq. And I think we should be doing this. And I am a Republican. I donated a lot of money to President Trump. I donated to Vivek. Now I completely, Vivek is going to my junk mail now. I want to vote for Trump, but I'll tell you, I'm a one-issue voter at this point. And if I hear more of this crap from the Republicans, that we should just mind our own business, Ukraine sucks, all this crap, I'm just going to vote for Biden. And I don't want to.
You can't do that. I get it. One thing to be like, hey, I'm going to stop giving money, but you can't go that's like saying, hey, if the Broncos keep losing, I'm going to root for the Raiders. You can't do that.
Listen, there's a lot of abortion one-issue voters out there.
Yeah.
That's all they care about is abortion.
Yeah.
And I'm at the Ukraine. That's where I'm at.
How did you get there? How did you get to be a Ukraine guy? Just you, like a single issue voter?
Because what's the alternative? To let them be overrun by the Russians and be oppressed and be made into slaves or whatever they feel like doing to them?
Yeah. Well,
what's the alternative? What's the alternative?
What do you think Reagan would do in this situation?
Look what Iraq did to Kuwait. Yeah. They threw them 8,000 of them in prisons or more.
I agree with you, man. Hey, very good, Jay. Thanks for the passionate end of the week call. Have a great weekend. 303-696-1971. Let's go to David. David, I've got 1 minute for you, and it is all yours. Go ahead, my man.
My comment is that the Democrats have to indict a Democrat to legitimize the indictments of Trump, and Menendez drew the short straw.
So do you think then that there's really no evidence of Menendez's corruption, that this is all made up? Like it's just, we just got to go get someone.
No, there's evidence. There's evidence on lots of guys that Menendez is the guy they picked. And he really? Probably.
So you think these guys know that there are a bunch of other senators out there that are, and it maybe not the exact same thing, but you know what I mean? The equivalent of gold bars in the clothes lining and all that other stuff. And they're just letting them go. But right now, because they need to look legitimate, they've gone ahead and spun the wheel, and it's landed on Menendez again.
Yes, I would believe that.
Why would he tolerate that? Why would he come out and be like, hey, man, I'm not the only guy that's doing this. Look at Hickenlooper.
Well, who knows what his defense is going to be? He just got indicted.
Well, that's true. He did just get indicted. But everyone else is doing it isn't going to be a very good defense.
No, it's not a defense. The defense is, you indicted me. You don't have very good evidence. But you indicted me because you needed to come up with somebody. It was me.
David,
you picked me out of a crowd.
Thank you for this call, man. I'm sure this won't be the last time we talk about this. Have a great weekend. Hey, folks, you did it, man. You made another awesome week out of the show. We're going to be back on Monday to do the same thing from 6 to 10 a.m. I can't tell you what's going to happen over the weekend, but we'll talk about it. We'll talk about that trial too. George Brauchler, George Show, 710 KNUS.